Oh, good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board. We'll call back to order the Santa Monica Malibu Board of Education meeting for today, the 20th of September. This meeting was called to order at 4:30 p.m. We, the board members, made our way into closed session. Member Ralph Metcher is out ill this evening, and we hope he feels better soon. The one item we'd like to report out of closed session this evening is a settlement agreement 1007-18/19, and that settlement reads as follows. The district will reimburse the parents with an amount not to exceed $23,567.25 for tuition fees as well as transportation expenses to the Village Glen non-public school. This amount covers the duration from August through December 5th, 2017. The district must receive proof of services and all the required documentation by October 31st, 2018. Second, the district will pay reasonable attorney fees in an amount not to exceed $6,437.50 once approved by the board and all the required documentation is received. The motion was moved by Member Keene and seconded by Member De La Torre, and it was a 6-0 vote. And again, Member Metcher is out this evening ill. Sarah, there are 6 members of the board here, of course, and this brings us to our Pledge of Allegiance. And I've asked Officer Sparks from the Santa Monica Police Department if he might lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome. Officer Sparks, thank you very much. I do put people on the spot every meeting, as you notice. I just run out there and see who we might call upon, and we appreciate your leading us this evening. That moves us to the approval of the agenda that's before us. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Thank you, Craig, seconded by Lori. All in favor say aye. Thank you. So the agenda has been approved. We have one set of minutes to take a look at tonight, and those are our minutes from the September 6th meeting. Are there any corrections or changes that need to be made? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Craig, seconded by Maria. All those in favor say aye. And opposed or abstentions, so those are unanimously approved, Sarah. Thank you very much. We have no commendations or recognitions this evening, and so, friends, that brings us directly to our superintendent's report. Dr. Drati.
Good, thank you. I have 2 topics I want to talk about today, but I do want to remind you, one of these topics is a hot topic right now. So, as a reminder, this was not agendized, so there won't be. We can't have dialogue with it. So, the first item is around school safety, and I think in previous superintendent reports, I talked about some changes that we wanted to look at and future aspirations around school safety for our district. And one of those is really the securing of drop-off and pickup at our elementary schools. My staff, and as I mentioned before, my staff had engaged in numerous conversations throughout the spring, given what we went through all last year and in previous years around the school shootings. Anytime something happens in a school shooting across the nation, I mean, it just sends a shockwave across school districts, and particularly last year, I mean, the conversations around that were just immense. All my peers, superintendents, were all engulfed in the same conversations. Unfortunately, these are times now, I think we have to really look at our schools and how secure they are. I mean, it's even influencing how we are thinking about restructuring the barriers in our schools and so on. At any rate, because of all the incidents that occurred in the whole state, in the nation, and some local activities that occurred this past year, one of which, unfortunately, one of our community members' parents committed suicide in front of one of the schools. That sends shockwaves into the system. So when something like that happens, it impacts staff, it impacts students, and parents. Because of all those things, particularly that situation at one of our schools, one of the questions was, had a school been in session at that time, and very easily somebody could have just, that person probably could have walked campus without us even detecting something, and we would have known something happened after the fact. So that really got us into some conversation around where we think we need to improve. And obviously we recognize anything we have is imperfect. I mean, you can't, these things happen, and if something horrible is gonna happen, we would do our best to mitigate it, but what can we reduce on? What can we impact? And one of those is during the school time, we know when somebody decides to come to school, we can check them in, say hi to them, make face contact, and then when they are let in, they have a purpose of being there, and so on. The times that we don't have that are during pickup and drop off at the elementary schools. So that one of our schools implemented something. I thought they engaged the community, their community, Franklin Elementary. They engaged the community and had conversations around just how they can possibly secure drop off and pickup in a way that wouldn't disrupt the school. The community came together, and they have a way of, when parents drop students off, there's a specific location where parents congregate, have conversations, talk, and continue to do the stuff they normally do on the playground, but instead they're just doing 10 yards out of where they used to be, or 20 yards out of where they used to be. Still on the campus, but not inside the campus. So they've been okay with that. I think that's all of our principals really like that idea. Reports from Franklin were pretty positive. Given everything that we experienced, and particularly the conversation we had over summertime with those incidents that occurred in our community, and then working with the law enforcement, we wanted to implement. We are interested in and want to implement that check-in drop-off during the drop-off and pickup, and make it district-wide, because we recognize that is a weakness in our area. By all means, we're not saying that's the panacea to this issue. This thing is complex, but that is a measure we can take immediately to try to resolve that. So in that process, particularly one elementary school had really, I think I'm getting a lot of emails, and there's some confusion about what the process is and what we're intending to do. The idea is not to limit parent community building, not at all. We're just saying, instead of the activity occurring inside, it can occur next to, still on the same campus, but not inside the gate. Or if it is gonna be inside the gate, let it be a designated place that everybody agrees on. So we're not trying to limit any kind of parent activity that normally would take place on grounds. I've invited a few principals to come talk about representing all the principals. They wanted those three to come represent all the principals and what they feel about the matter. And I've also invited Mr. Sparks and Mr. Grimmeth. They're two great officers that we are constantly working with. They have walked our campuses with our principals to help aid us in making sure that we have better secure campuses, and they're being great guidance to us. So I'm gonna invite them up to say just a few words, and then I'll, obviously we can't dialogue back and forth about this, but just to let you know, I will be at Roosevelt Elementary School at 6:30 on Wednesday to meet parents, listen to their concerns, and further explain why we're doing what we're doing. Hopefully we have come to a common understanding, and then we go from there. But with that said, please, the principals, could you come up there and just kind of talk, say a little something, and then we'll move to the next topic.
I'm up first. So I'm Dr. Benjamin, principal of McKinley Elementary. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to talk about why our secure campus policy is so important. So the situation is right now that before and after school, the reality is that the campus is unsafe. Any adult, a school shooter or someone who wants to come on campus and hurt or take a child, could easily come onto campus and blend in with the crowd. So right now, if you were to look out onto the yard, you would see a sea of people, and students, staff, and parents would have no idea who's a safe adult and who's an unsafe adult. So this secure campus policy would mean that in the morning, adults would stop at the gate where there's a gate monitor, and students would walk into campus on their own, where there would be increased supervision on the yards. So the yard supervisors would be easily identifiable in orange vests, and all the staff would have their badges, and this is just like how the middles and high schools do their mornings and afternoons. So the benefits of this are that instead of a sea of people, you would see a calm, organized yard just like recess, and students and staff will now be able to easily identify safe adults in badges and vests and with visitor stickers, and then not safe adults. Because now, just like the rest of the school day, we know who, when, why, and where every adult is on campus. Also, other benefits are that students will be able to be quickly picked up by their teacher, and instruction can begin right away. And now fire exit paths won't be blocked by strollers, bikes, or people. In the afternoon, similar process. Adults will wait outside the gate, just like they currently do before we open the gates. So they wait where they're currently waiting, and then the students will come to them. So first and second grade will be walked to the gate by their teachers, and third through fifth will walk on their own to meet their parent at a predetermined gate. After 10 minutes, the gate is locked, and then the gate monitor will take any students who have not been picked up to the office to call home and make sure that they get home safe. For TK and K, we have an earlier dismissal time, and it's on the front side of campus, so their pickup is not going to change. So they will have 10 minutes to go into the campus, go to the classroom door, pick up, and then promptly leave campus, and we have admin and a gate monitor available to supervise them. A note that 60 to 70% of our students participate in after-school programs each day, so the majority of our students do stay on campus, so it's a manageable number of students who are exiting out of our 2 gates each afternoon. The main concern I hear from parents is that they feel that this is changing the community feel of the school and that parents are no longer welcome on campus. And this is absolutely not true. We continue to encourage parent involvement. That has not changed in any way. We have parent meetings every week, including PTA General, PTA Exec Board, Site Governance, SBC, AASG, Special Ed Resource, ELAC, Room Parent, and Event Committee meetings. We have parent workshops and trainings. Parents can volunteer in classrooms, on field trips, and in the garden. We have restaurant nights monthly where parents and families can mingle. We have parent volunteers at drop-off and pickup. Parents can eat lunch with their child on Fridays. We have monthly outdoor school-wide assemblies. There's class parties, there's performances or celebrations, and we have over 50 family events every school year. If a parent wants, there is a parent involvement opportunity every single day on McKinley's campus. None of that has changed. We continue to encourage parent involvement and offer numerous varieties of opportunities for parents to be involved on campus. Parents just need to follow the board policy that's already in place, the visitor policy, where they sign in, get a visitor sticker, and have a reason for being on campus. Again, this is so we know who, when, why, and where every adult is on campus at all times. So this secure campus policy means that 20 minutes before school and 10 minutes after school, we can make our campus safer. We do not want to be in a situation where something happens to one of our students and we feel we did not do everything in our power to try and prevent that. This policy is about doing what's right for students and putting students first, because that's our responsibility as educators. So at McKinley, we continue to encourage parent involvement and have student safety as our top priority. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the safety measures I'm implementing at Roosevelt to deter unwanted visitors from our campus and increase awareness of all the adults that are on our campus during drop-off and pickup, and most importantly, to ensure the safety of all of our students. The why for this secure campus policy, in particular for Roosevelt, is quite pressing. Aside from the unfortunate increase in school shootings across our nation, our students at Roosevelt have experienced terrible and unnecessary unwanted visitor situations. As I'm sure you're aware, on our first day of school, we had an unknown female intruder enter our 9th Street gate after school, walk onto campus, and then she walked up to a second grader and tried to persuade him to get in her car so she could take him to her home. Fortunately, he had the courage to tell this adult no, and that his mother would not like that. We have also had unwanted visitors enter our campus in the morning and afternoon to use the student bathrooms. And just a couple of years ago, we had an unstable man run onto our campus through the Montana gate during a primary grade performance and try to charge the stage. As a principal, my first priority to our families is the safety of our students. More than enough time and experiences have passed to put a secure access campus in place. This is not a reactionary move. This secure campus policy is just plain common sense. After several campus safety walkthroughs with SMPD, I0, a private security company that is contracted with Beverly Hills Unified School District, Gary Bradbury, our risk management director, and concerned Roosevelt parents that are in the security industry, I was able to determine some common themes from their input. The first and foremost theme was to limit the number of gates being used to access our campus and control the actual access of adults on our campus. I have 6 gates that our parents had access to for drop-off and pickup, and I have now been able to narrow that down to 2 main gates and 1 kinder gate. The next change is to have parents drop off and pick up at the 2 main gates, very similar to Ashley Benjamin's procedures at McKinley. I've developed a step-by-step plans to make this as pleasant and easy a transition as possible, including opening our playgrounds at 8, creating a parent volunteer valet program and a kindergarten playground volunteer program. I've also created a parent volunteer safety committee for parents to channel their interest in school safety and provide input and revisions to our safety procedures for drop-off and pickup. Some parents have a perception that secure access at drop-off and pickup will somehow jeopardize or diminish their opportunities for building relationships and community. There also seems to be a misconception about the phrase closed campus. All of the SMM USD campuses are closed in the sense that during school hours, our non-staff people entering the campus are required to sign in at the front and wear a visitor badge. Securing access gates during drop-off and pickup is simply the logical next step. Our families have a multitude of opportunities to be involved at Roosevelt and build relationships and community. Our PTA and teachers provide numerous ways to volunteer, and parents are frequently and consistently encouraged to attend our school events, including those that are scheduled during our school hours, such as writing celebrations, class parties, performances, spirit assemblies, Popcorn Friday, and so on. With our new safety protocols in place, there are additional opportunities to be involved and build community. And for example, our PTA president has created a new Facebook page as an additional avenue for parents to arrange play dates and adult get-togethers outside of school. In the end, this is about safety of our children. If we hold off on this policy or don't do it at all, then ultimately if something happens, we all will be held accountable both morally and legally by our school and the larger community. That's not a chance I'm really willing to take. All our principals need your unwavering support to ensure a successful implementation of the drop-off and pickup protocols. Thank you.
So I believe my colleagues said it all. I really don't have to say much more, except for we've already done it. We started back in March with this policy. It was right after the Parkland shooting, and parents were approaching me on a regular basis saying, what are we doing to make sure our school is safe? And to be honest with you, what worried me more was how many restraining orders we had at that time, how many parents, divorced parents, were having not happy divorces and coming on campus and showing their kids how it was going on our campus, or parents approaching other people's children to speak to them because they were upset about something. And I had no control. I didn't sleep nights. I worry more about these kids. These are my babies. And if something were to happen to one of them, I don't think I could I could live with myself. So we started limiting access, and I have to tell you, there have been so many things that came out of it that I wasn't expecting that were fantastic. So I'm going to tell you the good parts. The good parts are that kids are getting to school on time because we opened the gates a little bit earlier. We have supervision. It's like Disneyland. They can actually play on campus. It used to be there were so many strollers and bikes and people, we couldn't take the balls out. They couldn't play on the apparatus. It wasn't their time. Everyone was talking. Teachers couldn't walk from the yard where they were meeting their kids to their classrooms. Now teachers are out on time. By 8:30, the yard is a ghost town. Everyone's in their classroom learning. So that's been a huge outpouring. Every child gets greeted in the morning. My assistant principal, myself, and or the PE coaches are out there to greet every single child. So in all the studies that show what we should be doing to help kids to feel wanted and loved on campus is being done right at the gate. I can notice if a child is having a bad day and pull that child aside and talk to that child before they even hit their classroom. And they know that there's a caring adult who has made eye contact, said good morning, shook their hand, made sure they were okay in the morning. And they get their exercise in the morning too. And our teachers feel safer because they just don't have people coming out of left field into their classrooms that they're not aware we're going to be there. So it's about limiting access, but then during the day, parents are welcome to come on campus as long as they sign in the office, take a badge, we know where they're going, and they're there. So that part has not changed. Like Linda said, it's 20 minutes before, or Ashley said, 20 minutes before, maybe 10 or 15 after, that have really changed. And my parents have been, for the most part, very appreciative. The kids love it because they have their own yard that they can play on. And there's a nice transition from the gate to classroom for every student. It's been a wonderful experience. Now we've been doing it for several months, and I have to tell you, I get very few complaints about it. It's very smooth, very wonderful in the morning, and everyone feels safe. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
I'm Officer Sparks. The principal's pretty much said it, and we're, as a police department, we're behind their decision to do so. It makes our job a lot easier because we have peace of mind that we can't be everywhere at once, and if our schools are a little bit more secure and there's limited access, it gives us the peace of mind that there's some control out there, and people and the community and the principals are helping us out do our job. We have been walking the campuses, assisting with them wherever they need help, giving them guidance, little tips on you know, what entrances to come in and out of, and that kind of thing. There is a big concern about school shootings, but there's also a concern about homeless people running onto the campus. As Deanna said, the restraining order issue, or as we all know, there's a big mental illness problem in our society. And some of the homeless people or parents or anyone with these issues have run onto campus, have assaulted other parents, have assaulted other children. So as Deanna said, when you have this limited access, you're gonna mitigate a lot of those problems. So there's a lot of unintended benefits of it. Again, I think I'm here to answer any questions later if there are any, but just again, we're behind the decision. We're helping out as much as we can, and that's it.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, I'll be going to Roosevelt on Wednesday to listen to the parents and also talk more about this, at least express where we're coming from, and any other school that is interested in me coming out and talking to them. So the second topic has to do with the Food Services Department meeting requirement that was revised by the City of Santa Monica ordinance. As you know, the City of Santa Monica approved a revision to the 2007 non-recyclable plastic food service container ordinance to expand plastics that are banned to include all single-use plastics for prepared food, such as utensils, plates, bowls, food trays, containers, and so on. This is a measure that we support as a district because it leads to a healthier environment. But I am here to report that we are making preparations to meet those needs. We think we can start executing some of these practices by January 1st of 2019. And but there is a cost. There is a financial cost to this. I think I shouldn't just execute without telling you what it may end up costing. So currently, service budget for these products is about $85,000 a year. It may jump to 150, but we think we can absorb that given what we're going to get out of it. So I know there'll be more to come on that, but I wanted to kind of give you a report out on how the district will respond to the City of Santa Monica's ordinance.
Great. Any questions for Dr. Draddy? Thank you very much, and thank you to the members of the Member Blaine. You can ask this has not been agendized, and so you can ask a clarifying question, but we can't discuss what was presented.
Okay.
Forgive me for not stating that first. Are there any clarifying questions for the superintendent? Okay, thank you.
Would it be okay to attend and do your meeting? Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So can I repeat that question, because Oscar, your microphone was on. Member De La Torre asked if it would be all right if members of the board attended the Roosevelt meeting with Dr. Draddy, and he said yes.
Absolutely.
And that's next Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. Colleagues, that now brings us to the consent calendar. And are there any items that need to be pulled? Yes, Maria. Yes, Maria. 191422.
What time is the meeting?
6:30 p.m.
Yeah, so the entire school board will be, or the four incumbents, the four people who are running for office will be in a forum at that point, so we can't be there.
On Wednesday? Great, thank you very much. So, back to Maria. I'm sorry, thank you. We're pulling item 191422. I am joining Maria Leon-Vasquez. Both member Leon-Vasquez and myself work for Santa Monica College, and that's a purchase order with SMC. Are there any other items that need to be pulled? Is there a motion to approve consent minus that one purchase order? Moved by Lori?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Maria. We have one public comment on consent this evening. John?
Public comment is a time when members of the audience may address the Board of Education on items. Speakers who have submitted a public speaking card prior to the beginning of this item will have 3 minutes to speak. If there are 10 or more speakers, the Board of Education shall limit the allowed time to 2 minutes per speaker. Speakers who have submitted a public speaking card after the board begins public comment for this item shall be allowed 1 minute to speak. Speakers and members of the audience are asked to refrain from expressions of support or disagreement that would intimidate other speakers or disrupt the meeting. We have one speaker on this item, Ann Thanawala, and you will have 3 minutes. It's for item 6A1, and then Ms. Thanawala will explain which item.
Hello, thank you. I did want to mention that we also put in chits for commenting on the minutes, and those were approved before we were able to speak on those. So I'd like to refer back to that if I could. But to speak on this particular calendar item, the question that has been raised in the parent community with regards to the contract for just communities, simply because we don't quite understand what this is. And in doing some research, parents are questioning the advocacy of this particular type of program, if it's actually been used in other districts for this specific purpose. We haven't been able to locate any kind of testimonials from parents who were engaged in this manner. So we're just questioning what this is going to look like before we spend $13,000 on the item, and how that's going to bring, as it says, an opportunity for more parents of all different backgrounds and whatnot to the table, and be able to advocate the way that all parents should be able to advocate for their children in the district. So that was my question about that particular item, and I wanted to raise it because the community has raised that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thanawala.
Can maybe Dr. Dradi or some other staff member respond to that?
Oh, yes.
Did you want to?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm proud to introduce Just Communities to our community. I use them in Santa Barbara for purposes of parent engagement, and they've done wonderful work there. So Dr. Murray and I, as we are looking to increase parent engagement and improve upon our parent engagement framework, that's our organization we're always sought after. So.
Thank
And
you,
if
Dr.
I'm sorry, may I? If I may also add, I'm sorry. This is a training that our Latino families asked for. We've been working with a cadre of parents from Samo High, and one of the asks was to receive a training so that they can create a mission and a vision for their group and align it to a particular student group at Samo High. So this is the initial conversation that we're having with them, actually tomorrow, to really build out the agenda for the training that is tailored to the needs of that parent group. The intention is also then to provide a similar training to our African American parent student support group that is tailored to their needs based on the work that they've already engaged in. Again, it's a call from our family, so we're responding to that request.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Oscar?
The board approved another parent group, Latino Pima. Will they also be invited to participate in the training?
This is connected to the dependent group at Samo High, so this is the parents that joined us that are either direct parents that have students at Samo High or grandparents. So this came from that particular parent group.
But would it be a problem to invite those parents that are members of Latino Pima who fit that category as well?
So we are inviting all the parents from Samo High, all the Latino parents from Samo High who are interested to attend. So there will be an outreach to Latino parents from Samo High who are interested in participating. But we also do have, based on the conversation that we engage in tomorrow, that will let us know the number of participants that we can have during this initial training. So that will also be communicated to the Latino families at Samo High, letting them know how many spaces are available so that they can respond and we can engage in that first initial training.
Being that the group is not that big, I mean, I think it'd be just a good gesture on our part to invite all parent groups, if you already have like a list of 30 and we've already missed it, and if we invite all those, it sounds you're inviting all parents at Santa Monica High School?
All the Latino parents, because this one is geared towards really developing and supporting the Latino parents based off of the conversations that we had with our families. So we will be doing a targeted outreach to Latino families at Samo High who are interested in engaging in this training.
Okay, so it's beyond just the small number of parents that are in the dependent parent group. I think that's the right term, right?
Yes.
So that's great. Yeah, that's good to know.
Thank you, Oscar. That now brings us to a vote on the consent item minus the one purchase order 191422. I'd also like to draw our attention to a date correction that needs to be made under the FIP. So item 6C1. The date should be 7/31/2018 through 8/31/19, and on our agenda it currently and inaccurately states August 31st, 2018. Thank you. So that goes through 19. I want to clarify that for all of us here on the dais as well as for the members of the public. So we'll go to our student board members first. Member Blaine? Yes. Member Afshar? Member Leon Vasquez?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberman?
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. De La Torre,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
and I am also a yes, and so consent passes again without 191422 purchase order. We'll now entertain a motion to approve, moved by Lori, purchase order
On
191.
that's just for that remaining purchase order, right?
Yes,
That's
the
what I'm
one,
moving.
the single, thank
Approval.
you. One single, and seconded by John King. Do you have that, Sarah? Thank you so much. And Member Blaine,
Yes.
Member Afshar, Member Leon Vasquez, Ms. Lieberman,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. De La Torre,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
and I'm an abstention. Thank you very much. To my colleagues here on the dais, I want to let you know that we did have 3 or 4 speaking chits presented to us on the question of our minutes. They were regrettably filed under general public comments, and so it was not an intention to not bring those forward, and we will now bring those cards forward under general comments, and we'll hear remarks pertaining to the minutes. However, please note that we've already approved those minutes, but if there were to be information presented by the public that would require or suggest that there should be a retake of that vote, any member of the board voting affirmatively on a matter can move to reconsider and reopen the item. So our apologies to those of you who placed your speaker's cards. They were put in the wrong slot. It is, again, regrettable and not intentional. That being said, we now move to our study session. Dr. Dradi?
So I'll invite Dr. Mora to assist. She will lead most of the presentation on this. But I'll introduce the concept before she goes into the details of it.
Thank you.
So this is the routine. I want to remind everybody this is a routine that we're going to go through every year in terms of looking at our district data. I want to remind everybody there's 4 times throughout the year where we will look at data. The first one, we remember we called it a quarter 1. This is when we review previous year's data in terms of how our students did with the state assessments and other assessments and other measures that we look at. There'll be 2 study sessions that we'll have for this. This is the first one, and then the second one will come at the next meeting. This, like I said, is what we call the lag data. So we will answer the question how we did last year. When we go to quarter 2, we'll transition, we'll go lead data. It'll be around how we are doing this year. And then we'll have the same data, similar data we'll look at in quarter 3 around March. And then quarter 4 will be the LCAP process in preparation for the following year. So this is like the start of the quarter 1, and as you can see the graph there, we'll go to quarter 2, quarter 3, and then quarter 4. So with that said, I'll bring up Dr. Murrow to explain the data here. I think it's important that I frame that like this in every year, so that way the community gets used to our data cycle. So, thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Morrow.
Thank you. So good evening, Board President, members of the board, Dr. Dradi, cabinet, and guests. This evening, I will be highlighting initial findings from the preliminary CAASPP student performance results data. As part of this report, we will also be reviewing promising practices that we have identified that have supported the gains we see, along with considerations for next steps. This presentation was informed by the cycle of inquiry that we engaged in with our leadership in the August retreat. So we had an August management retreat, and we looked at the preliminary data and were able to garner these initial findings. So what you see before you is what we are calling the cycle of inquiry, and it is centered on student learning. So what is the evidence of student learning? What are the data points that we're using? CAASPP is one of those data points, but it is not the only one. But for today, that is what we will be focusing our attention. So when we think about the quarter one lag metrics, we're looking at the CAASPP, and we are identifying and looking at this information district-wide. So overall, how did we do when we look at ELA and math? So we will be looking at our initial findings based on looking at the data as percentage met and exceeded in ELA and math, and then the performance levels in each particular content area. And then you also have the data disaggregated by percentage met and exceeded by grade levels, by language proficiency, and also by race and ethnicity. So these pieces you will find in the appendices. I will not go through each data slide. Instead, what I will do is really just showcase our initial findings and what we've learned as a result of reflecting on our practice and really thinking about how we're going to be moving forward. So goal 1 addresses that all students will be socially just and career and college ready. And goal 2 focuses on English learners becoming proficient in English while having access to rigorous courses. So as we look at these findings, those are the 2 goals that you want to keep in mind that are directly identified in our LCAP. So our initial findings really tell us that as we reviewed the preliminary data, we found that over time, student performance increased in ELA and in math overall. And that is something to celebrate. We are seeing gains year to year. This is also true for a few of our student groups. So we are seeing that there is consistent growth over time. And although we're encouraged by these gains, we identify that there is still a need to strategically focus our efforts to support our English learners, our Latino and African American students, our low income, and our students with special needs. So this continues to be an area of need. And also something that we've identified is that there needs to be a focus also of math. So we noticed as a team that that is an area that we have not seen as substantial gains as we did in ELA. So when we think about what are we using, how have we seen these gains? Some of the promising practices that we incorporate to support student learning include really fine-tuning and continuing to implement our common interim assessments. We have our guaranteed viable curriculum through the curriculum guides, so really being clear about the learning expectations for our students, using these guides to drive our work, and then engaging our staff to fine-tune those interim assessments so that they can get the information they need to adjust instruction. Also thinking about what are the protocols that we are utilizing during the school year to look at the evidence of student learning across all grade levels and content areas. Also, the importance of maintaining our SLT focus and deepening the implementation of instructional practices. At times we might say, well, we're not seeing the gains we want to see. We need to change. But I would caution us and really ask us to look deeper and really evaluate the implementation of our instructional practices and provide the support needed for our teachers to continue engaging in thoughtful conversations around the teaching and learning that is taking place, and support them to be able to visit classroom and observe instruction and provide feedback. Also, this leads us to the implementation of learning walks. So how are we visiting our classrooms, and what is the lens by which we are visiting? So making sure that we are looking at how we can support our sites at implementing the instructional focus or strategic focus that they have identified, and looking at how their strategies are being implemented and providing that feedback and support. And lastly, really providing professional development to our teachers that supports the development and acceleration of academic language development. Because we know that academic vocabulary can be seen across all content areas. So we need to think about the language of the discipline and how can we support our teachers in being able to target that within the instructional focus that they've identified at their site, and then differentiate their instruction accordingly based on student needs. So these are some of the promising practices that are taking place and that we need to deepen as we move forward. So then we think about what are our considerations for next steps based on the key learnings that we've seen. So as I highlighted before, math is an area that we are looking at. So how do we support our school leadership teams to integrate mathematics within their site strategic focus, and so that they can implement those strategies across the curriculum. So math is a content that we're looking at based on CAASPP, but we also have science, social science, history, the visual and performing arts. So how do we begin to integrate all content areas so that they see themselves reflected in the strategic focus and instructional practices that have been identified? We are also working with our math leaders this year on identifying a systematic intervention that supports first strong instruction. We know that we need to continue to refine and fine-tune the implementation of strategies around math and developing math practices. But coupled with that is how can we provide a systematic intervention for students that might need that additional support? Also continue to strengthen those our relationships with families so that they have a clear understanding of what the needs are, what we are doing to support, and how they can engage in that partnership with their students to continue to see those gains. And lastly, something that also was identified by our teams was providing opportunities for there to be vertical articulation. What is happening in kindergarten that supports the work and the learning in first? What is happening in 5th grade that supports the work in 6th grade? And so on and so forth, so that we can see how every single grade level has a very important role in our students being successful as they matriculate year to year. So this is something that we are going to be looking at very strategically so that we can provide this opportunity, not just within school sites, but also across different grade spans. So thinking about 5th grade into 6th, 8th grade into 9, what are those common areas that we need to focus on to support that transition from elementary to middle and middle to high? Because we know that that transition period makes an impact as students are adapting to a new space, a new environment. So how can we provide the supports necessary and engage in more thoughtful conversations as teams to support that success for our students? So I want to thank you at this point for all the support that you have provided to us and for allowing us to engage in the work of leading from the middle. It is this work that supports our site's implementations of cycles of inquiry that focus on student learning and strengthening instructional practices. Without this structure in place and without the support, it makes it more challenging for this to take place. So at this point, I will open it up for any questions or wonderings based off of what was shared.
Thank you, Dr. Mora.
You're welcome.
Lori, and then Maria, and Oscar. Thank you.
So I just want to share a couple of observations, which I actually shared with Dr. Mora right before closed session. But I looked at this first of all, I really appreciate this report and the format of it, because I read it really closely and was able to, I think, follow what I see as the trends and what we're doing about it. And so the way it read to me, which she validated, was that there is an upward trend over time for all groups. It's slow, and sometimes it goes up and down a little bit, but you see it in all these different types of charts, both the bar graphs and the, whatever you call the other kind.
The line graph.
Line graphs. And the other thing you see is that the achievement gap doesn't close, but that is because you have movement upward at the top and at the bottom. So that's, I think that that sort of demonstrates that something is going well, but that something's not going well enough, which is we want to provide impetus somehow for the bottom lines to move, to accelerate more quickly up. And then the other thing that I thought was really noticeable is not a surprise, but it's painful when you see it, is that most of the downward shifts happen in middle school. You seem to be moving in elementary school, it goes down, and then I do have a question, which is then you look at the 11th grade numbers and they've gone up. So I'm like, well, does some people recover and some people never do? Or I don't know how you figure that out. But anyway, those are my main comments. And then my other big question is, when we started all this, we talked about how we would share this with the community so that people who aren't at board meetings can follow the progress, know what we're doing about it, know those things that you just described so well about what is going on instructionally and among teachers to evaluate, reflect, build on what's going well and what's not, and all of that. So I'm really wondering how we best do that. I don't have a great answer, because some of this is hard to follow if you're not sitting here, and I don't know if it's letters, presentations. I don't know what the form is, but I am thinking it would be much better to find a way to communicate about this every quarter, really, rather than at the end of the year, people going, okay, what does that mean? So anyway, that's my question, but overall, I felt like the presentation of this was really easy to follow, really helpful, I thought, and so I want to appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Maria?
No, I agree. I agree with Lori. Thank you, because you brought it right to what the heart of it, and let's get to it. But thank you. And two, I did have that concern, because as we break down, and I know that we've gone up, you know, it's gone well for the, of course, there's always the top end of our students, the bottom end out of concern still.
Yep.
Because going from ELA to math, I mean, the percentages in terms of our African American and Latino students it's not very good at all in terms of them at least getting to that nearly met scenario. But mainly my concern being is this, as you were talking about the, there's a promising, you know, the staff practices, and maybe because I've been reflecting, because I've been able to attend a couple of meetings through my scenarios at Santa Monica College, and mainly met with the learning people. There's a good group being led by United Way this last couple of years with LAUSD. And one of those great scenarios that they brought in terms of that's kind of reflected in this promising staff practices is how do we include student responses to this? Because I know that for linked learning, a lot of it is based on project-based learning and work-based and whatever, you know, interest-based learning, all that is related to something on hands-on, that they're learning something in the classroom, but it's not just the teacher up in the front teaching. But there's also, it could be a certain percentage, and then it comes back to let's put it into use, let's put into action what you've learned. And that is one of the things that I noticed this summer when Dr. Irene Gonzalez invited me to go that last day, when they were, the summer group that they had at Grant, actually on the last day presented their projects after they had been in summer school for those and it was fantastic. The teachers there that were teaching it for the first time were getting their PD, understanding what does it mean to teach, but also do a lot of project-based, and so that they were putting a lot of what they were learning into activities where they were, the students were actually picking up and learning what they were being taught, you know, book or whatever, paper, whatever, in front of the classroom. So I'm just kind of wondering that, again, in reflecting back to what Lori said, that the jump, you know, goes from really doing well in elementary, then it drops at middle school. And I think we've seen that in years. You know, it's not the first time, but it's always been there. So what is it that we need to implement, especially when we get into the middle school, where you actually have students that can actually respond back to how the teaching is going, whether that's what they want? Do we need to continue and maybe, you know, future learning instead of my 21st century, but future learning means that it's not just going to be the teacher up there teaching in the front, but there's going to be other activities with that teacher and the students that's going to connect them. Because one of the main things that when you look around is, and I've seen it because I'm there at the high schools a lot, is how many of those students in a regular class, if they're not APs, are really involved and really paying attention to what's going on, especially after lunch on those hot days when we have no air conditioning and they're stuck in, you know, 80-degree, you know, classrooms and the teacher's up in the front teaching. People just, I would, you know, I wouldn't be paying attention. I would just drown out. So for me, it's like I'm hoping that somewhere along the line, as we continue to do future work in the practices, that we really start integrating some of that future learning. I know that we're looking into that as we're building our new school, our new classrooms in the future at SAMO. So how can we begin that practice now to how would that look like in the classroom, you know, with you know, whatever you might call it, project-based learning, you know, work-based, whatever.
If I may, to answer both Board Member Lieberman and Leon Vasquez, our school site leadership teams they've actually been engaging in a full day of professional development to engage in this dialogue, in conversations around how are we supporting our our special student populations, our English learners, our Latino students, our African American. These conversations are taking place, and they are engaging in that dialogue around what strategies do we need to implement? How is this working? How do we fine tune it? And some of our sites are talking about how does project-based learning take shape within our school implementation plan, within their plan. So these conversations are taking place, and they are exploring how do we incorporate project-based learning experiences with our more traditional, as we were discussing before, direct explicit instruction, so that it's not one or the other, but a combination. So those conversations are taking place, and it's based off of the work and the dialogue that's been happening here and in our schools currently and in the past as well. So that is happening.
Dr. Andrade.
Let me just add to what Dr. Mora said. It can be discouraging looking at that trend if it's not moving fast enough and all that. So I guess I'm gonna basically state what I find satisfaction from. I going to the SLT meetings and seeing that it's not the principals talking about this, but the teachers talking about this is a victory I got to chalk off. It's not something I can report on or anything, but it is something I say, well, now it's being owned by the teachers also. Or when you go into a classroom in these walkthroughs and what they actually wrote down and say they're doing and they're executing it, or those are the little pieces that we look at to try to see, okay, we're making a dent here, and those numbers at some point will start coming forward. So I think there'll be an invitation for all of you to be a part of those walkthroughs, because if you don't sit there and actually are engulfed in it, it can't be discouraging year by year looking at that data. It may seem stagnant, but at some point the flywheel is going to turn. I don't know if you got. I'm talking too. Maybe that's too fast, but anytime you spin in a flywheel, at some point it spins enough to where it rolls on its own, where it doesn't have to be pushed. So my suggestion is continue to look at the flywheel, be a part of understanding where it's going. So,
yeah. Thank you, Dr. Andrade. Lori, is that a clarified question here because we have a speakers list? Do you have a?
It's related, but I'll be.
Okay, Oscar, John, and then Lori again.
Yeah, when the data, when it's presented, when you say Latino or Hispanic, that's included, that includes English language learners as well?
Yes, because it's separated into language proficiencies, and so we have Latinos that are English learners, so it encompasses everyone.
Yes, correct. Because it's, I mean, is it, am I reading it right on the 2018 English language performance levels by race and ethnicity? Hispanic is at 21%, so not met, and 22% nearly met. And African American is 23% not met. So the African American population it has a larger population than the Hispanic population of those students that didn't meet the standards. That's
Are you
correct.
looking at the
Yeah.
ELA
Yeah.
or the math?
The ELA.
The
It's
ELA?
second to last, yeah.
So you're looking at all grades combined? So
Yes.
we're looking at 58% of our Latino Hispanic students have met or exceeded. So we still have a large group, over just under 50% that haven't. And for African Americans, it's 56. So we still have a significant group in ELA. And in math, the disparity is larger.
Larger.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that includes when we have to remember, even with ethnicity, we're going to have English learners within both groups. So that's why it's parsed out even further under language proficiency, so that you can see how individuals who are just English learners how that impacts the achievement gains.
And in terms of the discussions you've had, I'm assuming there's been targeted discussions with math teachers in our district, and is this happening at the site level, district level? Like, where are we getting information from the math teachers to tell us sort of what their struggles are and what are the issues or what are their needs in the classroom? Have we engaged them in that type
So
of
we
dialogue?
do have math teacher leaders that are representative of each site that are actually coming together to engage in this dialogue. But the intention is also to engage more thoughtfully with our math teachers. We've had meetings with our math pathway teachers at the middle and high school to talk about what is working, what's not working, and how can we better support them. So I think one of the key areas is also how does the SLT and the work within the SLT integrate and support math instruction as well. So how do we from the district office support our math teachers, and then how do we at the site level within their instructional focus also make sure that it's being integrated and that they see themselves reflected in the work of the school leadership team and in the strategic focus that has been identified. So yes, we are reaching out to our math teachers to gain input in relationship to what is it that they need and how can we better support them.
Great. And then my last two questions is, I'm assuming that some schools are doing better than others, either with the same, you know, the same demographic, you know. And then also, I'm assuming that some teachers are doing better than others in a similar fashion. And are we looking at that to say, you know, to what can we learn from these teachers or these schools, you know, so that district-wide we can use those as examples, you know, as a way to sort of gauge how we can improve our practices?
Yes, we are. And I think one of the things that we came away with during our management retreat when we actually engaged in the cycle of inquiry was that some of our sites highlighted that they had seen gains in certain grade levels. Were seeing gains, so they were sharing strategies at that point in time. So the intention is to continue with that work so that we're cross-pollinating and sharing practices across school sites, across classrooms. And I think that goes right back to the vertical articulation, not just the vertical articulation, but also horizontally. How are we engaging our teachers to come together to talk about what's working in our classrooms within mathematics or ELA or science or history, social science?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me just add to that too. So not only what goes on in classroom, we have to also analyze systematically, are there some things we're doing with ELA that's different from math? And a lot of the principal talked about the idea of the integration of the skills, whether you're in science or in social science or art. A lot of times you're teaching the discipline of English language arts in those concepts, but in math is really out there by itself, where students are being touched with other disciplines. So that's area number one. Secondly, we have literacy coaches that are focused on ELA. We don't have that level of support in math. So those math teachers are actually out there just really by themselves, you know.
Thank you, Dr. Druddy. Member Foster, I just want to share with you and the rest of the board that because there were no public comments here, we just slipped right into discussion amongst us. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that we're not just taking clarifying questions. There's no public comments, so we just jumped right in. So forgive me for not mentioning that at the start. So the speakers list goes John, Lori, and then Maria. John.
And then Craig. Great. Thank you, Dr. Moore, for the report. Just a few things. And I'm well aware that this is essentially year one, and that we know that this is going to be a multi-year journey to get to where we want to be. So I don't necessarily need the answers like this second, but the things that I was glad that you put in here that intrigue me are, for staff practices, continue to implement common assessments with clear learning expectations by grade level. And I'd be curious down the road to find out how does this look at our different sites? What supports are we giving our teachers? How are we getting them the resources they need so that they can norm, so that they can do a common assessment? And how is that starting to play out in instruction as we look at student work across grade levels, not just within a classroom? So that would be really interesting to get down the road. Because I know we've got some great instructors, and we're trying to get that consistency of it. The other piece that Lori brought up, which is we have that dip in math, which you all knew about, but the only pushback that I would give is that we don't see a recovery in high school. When I look at this data, that's the only thing that gives me pause, is that we don't see a recovery. And maybe it's to what Dr. Draddy's talking about, that we don't have the same level of supports that we have, but I'm looking at the math data, and there is no recovery. It just continues. So does this go back to what we talked about 2 years ago with math-specific teachers in elementary school? What are we doing in middle school when they get to math? With the new class that you guys put forward, the data class that you put forward with math this year. So we have new things in place, and maybe we'll see some answers down the road, but that's still the same concern that we've had for a while. But this is all going to play out over the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Lori, and then Maria.
Even though I don't even want you to necessarily answer it now, I do want to reiterate about how do we communicate about this, even if we wait till Q2. Not just that we communicate scores, in fact, that we make clear that it's not just about scores. It's about what we're doing, which should ultimately lead to a change in scores, but it's about how everything you've described. I'm not going to harp on that. But I feel like it's really important to those families who have been complaining, frustrated for years, and I feel like the more we tell them what we're doing, the more they will understand as things, even if they move slowly or if they move more quickly, as Dr. Drotti's flywheel example. I hope that's what happens, but I feel like part of what happens as a parent, if you're a parent where your child is not doing well, is you feel like the district says we're trying, we're doing things, and I sit up here and I know that we are, but but if I'm just a parent, I don't know that without you telling me what you're doing. And so I want to know that, and that brings me to the ones with the red bars, especially in math. I just want to I would, as a parent, if I had a child who were one of those reflected in those red bars, I want to know, and I don't mean this in a critical way, but I want to know how are we really working with those kids who are at the bottom, who clearly are not close to meeting the standards, and that there's a special strategy and approach that really is directed at them.
Dr. Drotti?
Yeah, so I think your question is important. That is a challenge you're talking about. So it reminds me of a conversation I had with Antonio Shelton, for example, today. Yeah, he's trying to do something revolutionary with the schedule at Samuel High that will address a lot of these, allow for more opportunities for project-based learning and all those things. So that's getting a lot of attention right now, at least with his community. But I think we probably need to do a better job of tying what he's doing with these challenges that we need to address. I think at that point you can capture people's attention about some of these. So somehow we have to figure out how we can do a better job of coordinating these huge systems changes that are going to attract people's attention, at the same time then discuss these issues at that time. So that's something we just came up with, we were talking about today, so.
Lori, was that, and Maria, thank you, Lori. Maria, and then
Well,
Craig.
that leads into what my question was going to be, because in order for us to do that, and you're talking about doing these project-based learning projects or whatever at the high schools in particular, we're talking about how do you support students in math. I think with a way, in my recommendation, because I saw it with those schools from LAUSD that had that language learning piece, because they actually had somebody running those programs, an individual just doing the project-based learning, doing an internships, doing CTE, whatever you might call it, but somebody designated to do that. Because right now the way our structure is, you have Dr. Moore and you have the director for secondary, you know, or Dr. Irene Gonzalez. And they're limited in terms of the amount of energy that can be put then into this. So maybe it's a restructuring of actually putting somebody that was going to be in charge of undertaking it to make it move. Because I know I had the conversation with Dr. Shelton too, and I agree. In order for it to move forward and to be positive, you really need somebody just designated there because to move this forward. And one of the key things that they had in most of those schools that we're getting some progress, that noted progress in the particular in the LAUSD schools, is they had somebody there that was identified. And then two, they were able to connect up, which is a little hard for us, I think, in Santa Monica, but very connected up with the LA Chamber of Commerce and their education committee, which is key, right on key in terms of the internships, and really opening up the doors for our students to go out there and because, you know, remember, we're supposed to be not just only career ready, but we have to be college ready, but also career ready. And really that component will not really come to fruition unless we have somebody there that's going to connect up with, I think, with our business community and just the community at large to open up those doors for those internships. I think in the past, we had somebody there. I don't know what's happening with RLP, whether we even have somebody there now. But I think we really need to expand that and open up the doors, because if not, if we don't have somebody identified, it's gonna be hard, because it's gonna get lost with everything else that's already on the table for all of you in ed services.
Thank you, Maria. Craig?
So today's a classic case of, I'm not going to repeat what everybody said, but I think there's been some terrific things said that I totally agree with, and I know you guys are taking them on board. I just had a few things. The first thing is, I want to express my gratitude. I love this presentation, and it does not put shooting pains in my head at all, and I'm very happy about that. I think your format is great. I love how you laid it out. You've got the absolute meat of it in the main part. You've got the appendices for people to look at. The way you put the graphs page on page, the whole thing is brilliant. It's like an A+, so thank you very, very much. And I'll maybe go what I was going to say at the end. The other thing is, I think we could release this into the wild as part of a public communication, because I think it really does stand on its own in some way, or maybe we could just, with a minimum of supports, would be a good thing to talk about. And I also think it can become part of our dashboard of how we grade ourselves or report back to our stakeholders, the public. And I would love to see, I mean, you may learn things as the years go by to make it better, but I'd love to see this exact format again in a year's time when you come back and do this same report, so that we get in the habit of reporting the same things in the same ways. I do have to echo John's year one comment, because I think it's so important. You know, you guys are getting the flywheel going. I don't think any of us are expecting to see huge changes right away. In terms of those huge changes, I want to call out that big data class. I want to call out project-based learning. I want to call out the 21st century thing that we've renamed, and I haven't learned the acronym yet, future learning. That I look at the math, and that's what really sticks in my craw is, and I think a lot of it is how we, you know, a lot of it is, I think if we were to make it more practical and we were to articulate it from kindergarten or preschool to 12th grade, I think we could absolutely move it. And I know you guys are on that, so I love that, you know, in the big data presentation, I wish all our classes look like that. I think that's the right way to get people going. Oh, and the school day. I mean, I know this from my own personal experience. It's hard to get help in school. You're too busy going from class to class to class, and that's at Malibu High that does have block scheduling. So, I mean, the watching a child who needs help and doesn't have time or energy in the school day to get that help is heartbreaking. I can only imagine, you know, how that goes for the kids in the graph you were talking about. So, you know, that's another piece of this that we have to all hold hands and move forward on, because when you talk about the broader pieces of this, the community piece, and not everybody gets the same level of help once they leave the school, the only way to do that is to create the space within the school day to do it. So certainly from my point of view, you've got my support as you carry that conversation forward. I think it's a really important one. Thank you so much. This is really great, and I'm excited.
Thank you, Craig. Maria?
Oh, just one last piece. I think Lori brought it up at the end, and I just wanted to respond to that, because in terms of, for a lot of those parents that, because I've been here such a long time, that will have in the past, you know, at least last 10 years, looking at those numbers for those students that are at the bottom, that I know that once we get, I think, just communities to come in to work with them, that I hope that they can sit down and get the parents up to speed in terms of what these really mean, because I think they're going to see this, they're going to say, and I'm going to get the calls. You know, they're going to say, what are you doing? You've been on the board for 18 years and we're still seeing the same, you know. So in all deference for all of you that, you know, Craig, that you've only been here, I mean, I've been here long, and I hear that all the time. So I know we are picking up on the speed, and for the first time I can really say that we're going to see that progress coming around. But I think we really need to let families understand and let them know what does this really mean for them, especially for their students who are at the bottom.
Thank you, Maria. Mr. Blaine, would you like to, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed, especially in high school, is that when it comes to like classes, maybe not, because standardized testing is kind of not something we do. Like, you don't do it until 11th grade, so you're kind of not really used to that. When you're in high school, you kind of forget about all the elementary school and middle school standardized testing. But one of the things I noticed about my friends who may not be doing as well is that it's almost that they don't care. And I know it's not because they don't care just because they don't care. It's they don't care because they feel like they can't do any better. So I've talked to Dr. Shelton about this before, but it's like, it's a really difficult process figuring out how to engage students who have gotten to a point in their schooling where it's just like, I don't care anymore. Like, I'm in 11th grade. Some of my friends who they've been doing standardized testing all their life and they've just done poorly, and they're just like, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm not gonna do well. Like, I don't care if I have like a 2.0 average. Like, that's fine. That's the best I can do. So I think that it's really important to reach out to the kids who are not doing well and understand, especially in high school, because I know that I have 7 classes, a sport, board member, like youth and government, all this stuff that I'm doing, and I don't have time when I don't understand something. I don't have time to go to a teacher most of the time. So I have to imagine my friends who, most of the time I end up doing pretty well, but I have to imagine the people who don't do well and they don't have time. I don't know how they are getting through any of that. So I think that getting people who are kind of feel like they just don't have really any hope, especially in high school, and maybe even middle school too, because I know it kind of stems from the whole middle school. And like, I know my friends who have been feeling this way since 6th grade. I think it's all kind of like an accumulation of this feeling.
Thank you, Mr. Blaine. I really appreciate your comments. I think so many of us talk about a joy of learning often, and when you just use the word hope and you said students have kind of lost hope that he, she, they could do better or improve, I think it's very valuable to hear you say that. My comments, and Oscar, I'll come right to you. Dr. Moore, I would just concur and say thank you very much for the presentation. I think it was wonderful. Also, just some of the things that I have on my mind when I looked at the data is I too wonder, as we all do, how we prevent the slippage that starts in middles and, as John and others have said, continues, particularly in the area of math or the math instruction. And I wonder about what we're doing with regards to early alerts and early intervention. It's really, really important, and we know that, and I know I can only speak, well, a lot of us can speak anecdotally from, we put our kids through this district and love this district, but it seems as if the intervention and the early alert is really top notch at the elementary level, and whether it's something to do with the development of the human being, et cetera, in adolescence, that something's happening, right, perhaps. So, not this moment, but it would be nice, recognizing this is year one as we continue to move forward down this path, to be able to think at the same time, not to think, but to be able to have presented alongside our data kind of a reminder as to what kinds of early alerts and early interventions, and what can we draw from those efforts. Can we evaluate those efforts and see, as we start to move forward from year one to the many more to come, if we are improving and if we can map back to those particular interventions. And then also, I, as a teacher myself, noting these standardized tests that Mr. Blaine references, and I'm always wondering whether or not grade inflation is something that I should be concerned about as a teacher, that grades are supposed to be these tools to evaluate the progress of a student and to say whether or not he, she, they are, mastering the subject material. And I wonder how grades correlate, what we know with grade data, how it looks stacked up against the standardized testing. I think that's really significant because standardized testing, some of us have some views on that. I think all of us do. It's not the be-all, end-all, and what other kinds of learning is taking place. And so I think everybody on this board has said multiple times that we would never hang our hat on just one hook. But it would be interesting to see that, are those numbers here in the red, for example, reflecting or a mirror, if you will, of a grade distribution. I find that to be something that I would like to know, but the board would have to say if we want that. But I think it's something for us to consider and to be thinking about. And so I'm gonna go back to Oscar, then Mr. Blaine, and then I think we're gonna let Dr. Drade and Dr. Mora conclude if that's okay. Thank you, that was my turn. Oscar, Mr. Blaine, Dr. Drade.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mora, and I agree with everyone that's been said about the preparation on this report. Is very easy to read, very user-friendly, so I really appreciate how you laid it all out. The other thing that I appreciate is the comments about early intervention. I think being on this board for a long time as well, you know, you see that there's certain patterns that are just consistent, and one of them has been the struggle in math, you know, and I appreciate also what Dr. Drade said about having reading specialists, you know, but we don't have the equivalent for math teachers and the support in the classrooms. I don't think the schools can do it by ourselves. The school district, I think, is not going to be able to really make the type of progress that we need to make on our own. But we have a lot of nonprofit organizations, a lot of after-school programs, some on our campus. So you have like the Boys and Girls Club, right? So I think to myself, what kind of coordination needs to happen around the area of math? Because with my son, I can say that as he was struggling with math last year, I thought, you know, how can I make math fun? So I had to engage myself, and one thing that I saw that at in the middle school, that he really responded well to, and his friends did too, is study groups. So the time that I said, hey, you know, let's have your friend come meet us at the Pico Branch Library, and I called it rapid fire, you know, where I would throw, you know, it was like competition between the two boys, and they kind of got into it, and all of a sudden they're having so much fun, and we're laughing and having a good time solving math problems, you know, and so if we can do some professional development over how to arrange study groups, maybe even engage parents. There might be parents in our community that, hey, I'd love to, you know, go through the volunteer, vet myself, go through the process so I can be a volunteer just in math, because it's a big initiative. Like, I think we need to roll out some type of initiative that's just all inclusive and involves you know, the students, the parents, the after school, you know, the nonprofit, you know, community, teachers, you know, sort of make it as important as, it's like right now we're starting AYSO. I mean, the way they organize is, hey, you need to come and volunteer as a referee or a coach, or they don't let you off the hook, you know? I mean, this stuff is serious. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, and training, and they do, so professional development. I mean, there are models in our community of how to make something work, and we're very good. I mean, when it comes to certain things in our community, we're very good. So I'm thinking we need to approach it from that level. It's gotta be a larger effort than just, you know, with math teachers in the classroom, sort of an insular approach. It has to be more of a collective impact approach, you know? So I just wanted to share that because I was just reflecting on how do we engage the middle school students. And from my experience, the study group concept, like once we rolled it out, try to make it fun, there were certain things that really got, especially these young boys that I was working with, sort of attracted and engaged, and they had a good time doing it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Mr. Blaine, and then we will return to Dr. Drade and his staff.
Thank you, and yeah, Dr. Moore, I think it's a really great presentation. I'm definitely going to take it back to my associated student body class and show it to them. But yeah, one of the things I want to address, especially relating to high school students, is, in my opinion, GPA and like the grade you get, whether it's a 4.0, like I feel like that's less an accumulation of your knowledge and more of how much work you put in. I know for a lot of my classes, the way they weight grades is that either notes or like homework counts for like maybe 30 to 40% of your grade. So you can, if you do your homework on time and do your notes on time, you can get a B or an A without having to necessarily like be the smartest person out there. But what I noticed with a lot of people is that, especially the people who are consistently not doing well on GPA and standardized testing, is that like when the teacher checks homework, they just won't have their homework every single day, and it's just like, the teacher's like, why don't you have it? They're just like, I don't know. It's just like, it's one of those things that I feel like for people, because I think what you said about the early alert, like when students are getting like 0.4 or 1.4 GPAs in middle school, that's a sign, because you, from personal experience, like you have to try to do like that poorly, because I know that if I didn't study for tests or didn't take notes for anything, it wouldn't be good. But to get a GPA that low, you have to purposely not want to do the work, not want to put in the effort. So I don't know how we do that. I think the study groups is a great idea. I think having like one-on-one teacher meetings with students and like parent meetings to kind of get these kids' heads straight almost, because it comes to a point where they're just like, yeah, like I've been doing this for a while. It's fine. Like it doesn't matter because I know some of my friends like in 8th grade had like a 1.0 GPA, and I'm just like, it's not something that you don't get a 1.0 GPA because you're not smart. You get a 1.0 GPA because you don't care. So I think it's getting people to care rather than just having them do that. Yeah.
I think much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Dradi, Dr. Mora.
Well, I'm gonna change what I was gonna say just to it. Yeah. But I think as you can see, the power of getting students' voices is huge. So I think that is an area we really have to tap into. When Oscar said the school can't do this by itself, that includes going to the students and say, well, how can where are we missing this and where are we missing the mark? At the next lag presentation, you'll get a sense of some social emotional data also around anxiety and stress, and I think you'll find that it would be fascinating where the level of stress is coming from the students. And I think all this is tied together, so a lot to discuss around this area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Mora. Colleagues, that now brings us to discussion items. And Dr. Dradi, we'd like to take discussion items 8A through G together. Those are our recommended revisions to board policy. I'll read them all and then know that you'll take them in order with the staff. First is Board Policy 410, the non-discrimination in district programs and activities. Then we'll also take a look at Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 5111, admission, 5111.1, district residency, 5125, student records, 5125.1, release of directory information, and 5145.13, response to immigration enforcement, and lastly, 5145.3, non-discrimination harassment.
So I'll pass this to Dr. Mark Kelly to do the honor.
Thank you, and I'm going to do it from here so that I can take notes on your comments as we're going through. So what's before you is a set of policies that we're asking you to approve. The following set of policies, each is brought as a package to address the passage of AB 699, which mandates support for immigrant families. Specifically, AB 699 expressly added immigration status as a specified protected characteristic for purposes of anti-discrimination and equal protection laws in schools. Each of the proposed policies and regulations have been updated to comply with the mandates of AB 699 and are consistent with the California Attorney General's model policies. Additionally, as several of these policies needed routine updates, the entire policies have been updated to reflect the most recent laws and regulations. Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 5145.13, Response to Immigration Enforcement, is a new policy and regulation that addresses the mandate of AB 699 and is based on the CAASPP sample policy. And so I'm going to take us through each of the policies and regulations. We'll take them one group at a time, and then we'll pause and see if you have questions, comments, or thought. I think it's the best way because they're seemingly discharged, but they all have a thread of addressing support for immigrant families.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Sounds like a plan. Is that all right with everybody? Great. Thank you. Take it away.
So this is Board Policy 0410, Non-Discrimination in District Programs and Activities. As it's been said, and you'll hear this kind of repeatedly throughout, it adds immigration status to categories of characteristics that are protected against discrimination. It does require parent and guardian notification of their child's right to a free public education regardless of immigration status or religious belief, and it does comply with the Attorney General's model policy. It also reflects SB 31, which prohibits districts from compelling or assisting in the compilation of registry based on immigration status, religion, or other specified characteristics. Questions. So let's take a look at the board policy. Any questions or comments?
Seeing none, we can move along.
I do want to point out that we do have a spelling correction on the second page of the board policy that I'll make.
So he's going to walk through each and then ask us if we have questions. So I didn't see any hands there, so I asked him to move along. But
I think Ms. Lieberman, do you have a question on this?
Well, is it on the one he just presented, Lori? Yes, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I didn't turn this on. I think the typo is, it was meant to be other, the letters are just inverted, that's the typo, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
then further down in that same page, I think, where you give, where it's, I know this is stupid, but, where is it? Where you designate, where we designate the district's ADA coordinator, and then there's an address. In one of the other policies, there's a different designation of somebody else, who's a coordinator compliance officer. That's in one of the other policies. There's a transition there that I think would help here, which just, in that one, it says the coordinator / compliance officer may be contacted at, and then it's got that address. If you do the same thing here, because I honestly was confused about this designating someone in the district's ADA coordinator and then putting an address out there and not connecting those two. But when I saw it later in the other policy, I said, oh, that's what they meant, and I sort of thought that, but you can just make it clearer. You know what I'm saying? It just needs a line right before the address you give that says, the ADA coordinator may be contacted at, boom. Because you have to make the connection in your own head that the assistant superintendent human resources is that person, or that's their office where that person resides.
Yes, yes, we can add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Was there another, Lori, on that particular one?
No.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else before Mark will move to the next? And then he'll ask us at each interval. Thank you.
So the next two were recently updated, but as these now, as early as this past May, but they're updated now to reflect the compliance with AB 699. And so this is the admission policy, and it prohibits the collection of Social Security numbers or last four digits of Social Security numbers of students or their parents or guardians unless otherwise required by law. And it also prohibits districts from inquiring into student citizenship or immigration status. And you see there's some language from the Attorney General's model policy. Any questions on the BP or AR?
That one is, sorry, I just lost it on my little computer here. What's the number are we on? No, which policy?
5111.1.
Okay, I have a question.
Right now, we're just on 5111.
Okay.
So forgive me, the admission.
Sorry, my laptop is messed up here.
Okay. Well, Lori, we'll come back if you find it. Okay.
It's a different one I have a question on.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
So the next one is 5011.1, district residency. Again, it prohibits districts from collecting information or documents regarding the citizenship or immigration status of students or their family members. It also reflects the new law, SB 257, that a student meets district residency requirement if the student's parent or guardian was a resident of California who departed the state against his or her will pursuant to a transfer by a government agency or court order or Federal Immigration and Nationality Act. And again, this is another one that was revised just recently made, but now revised to comply with AB 699.
Looks good, thank you.
Now we're in BP and AR 5125, which is student records. Again, this reflects AB 699, prohibits districts from collecting information regarding student citizenship or immigration status, and requires staff to receive training in the gathering and handling of sensitive information, and limits the collection of students' Social Security numbers or last four digits of Social Security number. It also reflects SB 31 prohibits districts from assisting in the compilation of a list, registry, or database based on students' national origin, ethnicity, or religion. It also expands the types of records used related to foster youth that may be accessible to specified agencies, and requires the annual parental notification include a statement that a student's citizenship, place of birth, or national origin will not be released without the parental consent or court order.
Lori?
I have a question on this paragraph about student records from social media. So it says, I think it's the first page of the board policy. The superintendent or designee may systematically gather and maintain information from the social media of any district student, provided that the district first notifies students and parents/guardians about the proposed program, offers an opportunity for public comment at a regularly scheduled board meeting, and gathers only information that directly pertains to school safety or student safety. So what does it mean? What do you mean by the proposed program?
I can give you an example. In some recent years, there are programs available out there that vendors are meeting with districts. An example, they're called geo-listening, which they would designate a geographical area, and this would monitor social media and a number of social media sites using words, searching for words, phrases that would represent concern, maybe a threat to a school site, threat to harm for a student, threat to harm to a school, monitoring these things, and then typically what they will do is have a relationship with the school and inform them of what they have so that the school would have an opportunity to intervene. We currently do not do this, but there are school districts that do have this. You never know what the landscape will be in the future and if that may be something necessary in the future. But that's what this is referring to, and that word systematically there. There are times when we will, on a student discipline issue, maybe have to utilize social media in order to address a student issue that's going on. Again, the issues of threat to harm, threat to self, threat to others, we will do that. This is specifically about systematically doing that and using some of these programs that are available out there that some school districts are currently using.
Okay, and so individual students, like you just described, that's dealt with in some other arena.
Correct.
Monitoring and.
Typically it would be covered by search and seizure regulations.
Okay.
So perhaps, if I can just clarify, because I have a question here too. So on a couple of occasions, actually, I have seen something on social media that alerted, and I thought, oh, I should let the school district know. I have done that. But this would be potentially in the future, we don't have this now, but we might contract with or have some sort of program that would be this listening.
Called geo-listening, yeah.
Yes, and then before we would enter into that contract, this policy says that we would have an open session. We would let the
Correct.
community know that we were about to engage in such a program, and there would be, transparent governance that unfolds. And then this would be presumably to, maintain an order and security in our district. Is that correct?
Correct.
So can I'm just trying to wrap my head around. So you're talking about, let's say that there was massive bullying going on and we felt it was happening on Facebook. That's the kind of thing where you might use this program and you might, or what do you mean? I mean,
So for example, can I just want to jump in with the one that I had. So I called Dr. Kelly when there was a recent high school graduate who threatened violence on one of our campuses. And so I think that we would want to focus on those kinds of threats, and we've seen across the country where there have been, sadly, regrettably, school shootings, and some of the perpetrators of those crimes have actually been on social media and there's been signals. And so some school districts are looking at how to be able to monitor and provide for safer schools. Is that correct? That's from
But
Yes, you may have issues that come up on social media, and you're going to deal with them on a case-by-case basis, whether they be individual to a student or to a larger group of students or a school as a whole. That's not necessarily what this is talking about. This is about systematically monitoring social media in a proactive way to identify things that we may not be aware of in advance that might be able to be addressed in order to curb or prevent something from happening. Like I said, there are software companies out there that school districts are contracting with, saying, we want somebody to do this on a daily basis. And they'll go specific to, there was a tweet in a period 3 English class at Santa Monica High School that named this student or something. We really think somebody needs to look into it. And so they systematically do that for a school district. Like I said,
Sure.
I don't know that we are entertaining this. I can't say that at some future, depending on how things progress, that we would.
So that's not on the agenda tonight, right? So we're not contracting.
I'm just trying to fully understand it, and when I hear you describe it, I go, well, if I don't even understand how this procedure would enable you to address, if you heard a specific threat, which is what sent you into this mode of wanting to do this, you've got a process. It might take too long to get any useful information, but maybe it's not something we're ever going to touch anyway. I was just trying to understand it because I didn't understand what it was referring to.
Isn't this about a rising tide of global threats? So if there's some sort of an increasing politicization of school districts and threats around where we feel like we need to start building a bigger barrier, right? This isn't about bullying in school.
No, this is about systematically monitoring social media in order to identify issues that we might, as a school district, address. Prior to any knowledge of that, if we have knowledge about something in terms of social media, we certainly would proactively do it, and it would not require these actions. It's saying, you know, we don't want to do this, but we see enough concern, enough stuff that's going on a daily basis. There are pros and cons with it. It can be highly intensive. I'm trying to think. I know recently, I don't know if they're still using it, Glendale Unified contracted with a vendor to provide this, where there's staff on that the company identifies and said, when we do something, this report will go to these people. It's their expectation that then they would follow up with that to try to address the issue. And again, it's using keywords, phrases, things of concern that they typically would see out there.
So I do want to move on because this is, right, we need to move on. This is something fascinating to talk about, but this is just saying, this is about a privacy question and a transparency question, saying that if we ever move in that direction, we're going to let the community know that we're moving in that direction, and there'll be open input. Okay, we'll go move forward, please.
Okay, that was BPNAR 5125, and there's a lot on the student records and updating. That was just, this has been needed to be updated, so let me get moving along.
There's a couple
here.
typos in the AR. You're not going to go through the AR on this one, right? On that last one, I just want to, when you change it so that you bring it back, there's a couple typos, I can just give them to you. Like
Yes.
off
Okay.
line here.
That'd be great. Okay, this is AR 5125.1 with the exhibit. We've also included the board policy, although there are no changes to the board policy, just for your reference. And this, again, is just reflecting the updates of AB 699, requiring the annual parental notification to include a statement that directory information does not include citizenship status, immigration status, place of birth, or national origin. Questions?
So we'll move on.
Next, this is the new board policy and administrative regulation. Again, it's in response to compliance with AB 699, response to immigration enforcement. And this mandates that districts adopt a policy consistent with the Attorney General's model policy, which says that response to requests by law enforcement for access to information, students or school grounds for immigration enforcement purposes, and actions be taken in the event that a student's family member is detained. So that's what's described in this board policy and administrative regulation. Again, prohibits districts from complying lists, registries, or database about national origin, ethnicity, or religion.
Thank you. We're good. Mark, that brings us to
I want to just make one comment, which is throughout all these, I totally support them, and I think you're doing a great job and doing the right thing, but they all hinge on limiting the number of people who are responsible for any kind of requests for any of this information and on really proper training. So that's sort of obvious, but I feel like I have to state the obvious.
Certainly.
Agreed.
I think we all agree with you, Lori.
Oops. And then the last one is board policy in AR 5145, non-discrimination and harassment. Again, prohibits discrimination based on immigration status, updates the list, broadens the school activities covered in the policy, clarifies what's included in unlawful discrimination, expands the steps the superintendent or designee will take to ensure students, parents, or guardians, employees have been informed of the policy, revises reporting and investigation procedures, and clarify which district employees are responsible for coordinating the district's efforts to comply with the policy.
Okay. Are we okay, friends? Okay, we're good, Dr. Kelly. So with those comments that Lori presented to us with the first one, which is the correction, and then also the, I think, Lori, you were saying, well, you got it, right, with regards to the aligning. It looks like we're good. Thank you very much, and we'll expect to see this on our consent agenda at our next meeting. Thank you very much. That now takes us to discussion item 8H, which is a progress update of the district-wide plan for sustainability. I see Carrie Upton is coming to the microphone. Welcome, Mr. Upton.
Thank you. So we've been working a little while on the district sustainability plan, and we wanted to give you an update as you had requested of where we are in the process. And I'm going to be turning this over to Caroline. Actually, who starts, Emma or Caroline? Okay, so Caroline Koster, who is our sustainability coordinator, and they will guide you through what we've been doing and where we're going in our plans towards sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Caroline Koster, Sustainability Coordinator, and I'd like to welcome Emma Sorrell from Cumming Corporation. Cumming joined us last December to help us put together and create and develop this comprehensive sustainability plan. And she's going to be giving a brief update of where we are. Happily to announce that we are almost finished. And I'm going to jump in at the tail end and give you an update of all the other progress that we've been doing for sustainability, since the plan is just a small fraction. So welcome, Emma.
Good evening. So I'm really excited to be able to present just kind of a brief update of what we've been up to over the last several months, and kind of share with you where we've been and what to expect for the remainder of this process, and what the final product is going to look like. So the vision for this project, as you very well know, really providing the leadership to take this on. The sustainability plan will lay out a roadmap for the district for pursuing sustainability over time. And we've identified three main objectives for the plan. The first is to unite all of the existing sustainability initiatives. And over the last several months, I can personally attest to the fact that there is a lot going on throughout the district. There are best practices hidden in corners. And so one of the things this plan is trying to accomplish is identifying all of those initiatives, bringing them into one location, and building additional institutional support for them. So that's the first objective. The second is incorporating sustainability into ed services and all aspects of student learning. And so we recognize that's a really critical component as the district's primary mission, to have that really deeply integrated into the sustainability plan. And we've been working with ed services and Dr. Mora on that component. And then finally, to integrate climate protection and resource efficiency, waste management, sustainability practices into the fabric of the operation, and so that we can really embed sustainability deeply, not only in the classroom and kind of from a policy perspective, but actually into day-to-day operations. And so we've identified 8 topic areas that this plan is going to address. The first is education and engagement, energy efficiency and renewables, food, nutrition, and wellness, green buildings and operations, water, solid waste, transportation, and material procurement. So those are the 8 sections of the plan that really dive into, you know, goals and strategies. And I want to point out that the education and engagement, it does stand alone as its own section to address curriculum and kind of the formal education and engagement programs. But we're also embedding education and engagement opportunities into each of the sections as they relate to those topic areas, and identifying those opportunities as well. So this is kind of a snapshot of the planning process and where we've been over the last several months. So we divided the project into 3 phases, the first being an engagement phase. And, you know, as a sustainability plan, this really, it addresses all levels of the district, all members of the district, and so building that, building engagement and stakeholder buy-in, and also learning from what's going on the ground was really critical. So since about February through May, we were active in this engagement effort. We established a sustainability steering committee, and we've been meeting with them every 3 weeks throughout this whole process to really learn and understand how things work within the district. And that committee is made up of key stakeholders, representatives from the operations areas, from ed services, financial oversight committee, as well as PTA. We've also conducted a lot of interviews with key stakeholders from within the district to understand their operations, where there are opportunities, where there are challenges that we need to be able to address, and help identify strategies for overcoming those challenges. So we've done interviews with maintenance and operations and food services and the PTA. So we've gained a lot of really valuable information through that process. We've done community workshops. We hosted a charrette for the Santa Monica area as well as for the Malibu area, and that was more focused on parents to kind of bring them into this process and hear what is their vision for this plan and what do they want to see addressed. And they also bring a unique perspective to what's going on within the district. So that was really valuable. And then lastly, we did some public outreach through the Santa Monica Climate Fest. So we had a table there, and there's a photo, and we collected feedback from the community on this plan as well. So the second phase of the project was an assessment phase, and that we were kind of deep into the data, the sustainability data for the district, evaluating programs, you know, energy data, all the sustainability data that we were able to collect, and starting to identify goals and objectives and strategies for this plan. And then the third phase, and that's where we are right now, is the actual report development. And so throughout September and October, we are actually drafting the plan and doing some internal district reviews with those key stakeholders in the different operational areas and ed services to make sure that they're, you know, everything that we're recommending aligns with their expectations, and that this plan really is achievable and implementable. And so for the remainder of this project, in November, we will be hosting some additional town halls to circle back with the community, give them a chance to see the plan before it's finalized and get some feedback from them. And then finally, we'll be in front of you again in December to present the draft, the full draft of the plan. So we also wanted to share the components of this plan, give you a sense of the frameworks and know what to expect. when we do deliver the full draft. So we are establishing baseline and performance metrics for those key sustainability areas that I spoke about earlier. Performance metrics will allow the district to evaluate progress over time and compare back to that baseline so we can really see the progress of sustainability. Sustainability is really it's a road. It's not an end destination. It's an iterative process. So by having those performance metrics, we can constantly evaluate progress and see that we're moving in the right direction. So to support that, we're also establishing goals where we have three target deadlines: 2020, 2025, and 2030. And so those 2020 goals will be low-hanging fruit, easy to implement, easy to achieve goals to really build some momentum for this program. And then the further out goals will, again, provide that roadmap of where we're trying to go and allow the district to put infrastructure in place to achieve those longer-term goals. A good portion of the bulk of the middle of each section will actually be focused on existing initiatives. And so we really wanted this plan to highlight all of the amazing programs that are already in place, identify best practices that exist that could be expanded district-wide, and really share what is already going on within the district and bring them into one single document. Next, there'll be recommended strategies, of course, and those will be focused on helping the district achieve the goals that have been set out, and they'll be prioritized for implementation based on cost effectiveness, ease of implementation, a number of different factors. And then lastly, for each section, we're also identifying project costs and funding mechanisms to help with the implementation phase. So we're identifying grants, cost-saving potential, and kind of rough magnitude of what we can expect to see there that can help offset some of the implementation costs associated with this program. And we've shared a little snapshot of the report aesthetic so that you can kind of see where we're going with that. We want it to be really easy to read, easy to digest, so that this really can be not only a district document, but a community document, and engage parents and families in this process as well.
Thank you, Emma. And before I move on, I received your request to briefly address the plastic food ordinance and where we are with that. Food Services Director and Richard Marchini and I have been sitting down with our supplier for all the products, and we are going through a very thorough evaluation of what we use currently and what we can phase out and what kind of material is available. And we're working with the City of Santa Monica and the City of Malibu to see what they recommend. Since this is new, there's not too many vendors that are going this route. So it will take a while for us to process it all and evaluate and make sure that it will still work for the district. So something fun that I wanted to share and new is on Tuesday, September 18th, we had the official ribbon cutting and opening of Branching Out Student Tree Nursery at Samo High Campus. So essentially, the tree nursery, it's located on the southwest corner of the football field. And what it is the students are going to care for and grow all the trees going to be used for the 25-year campus plan and all the construction projects. So since we're changing up the landscape and we are adding a lot of trees, it was Steve Massetti's idea for the students to actually grow the trees that will be planted. So the first phase of trees are in. We are adding about 89 that are going to be planted for the new Discovery building. And the nursery is equipped with irrigation. We have a greenhouse for the seedlings. We have planter beds. And the City of Santa Monica and volunteers have offered to hold some lessons on some important topics about gardening in the area. Ocean-friendly gardens, composting, vermicomposting, and see if we can add some bioswales to the area to save on some water if it does rain. So that was a really good turnout, and I hope you guys can check it out. Another exciting new tool that we have is the SMMUSD Energy Dashboard. So we worked on this for about a year. It's going to be it is an interactive tool available to everyone. It is a link to a face of a dashboard that you can click on. You can compare sites and basically examine energy use overall in the district, electric energy usage, school. You can compare all the schools and the solar production savings and the estimated cost savings if we start to reduce energy. And so one of the first ways that we will use this is on October 1st. We are starting our district-wide energy competition. So we are launching a competition, a friendly competition, but everybody has to be involved, including the district office, because if you see, the district office uses an unbelievable amount of energy compared to everybody else. So per square foot, the district office uses a lot. But there's a lot to consider with that. A lot of people have their desks, their printers, their coffee pots. Everybody's basically desk-bound in the district office.
And the data center.
In the data center, exactly.
That must be air-conditioned at all times.
And air-conditioned at all times. So everybody will participate, and our goal is to save about 5% of energy by June. And most of this is doable by behavior changes. So I've come before you before, introducing some of the behavior changes, closing the blinds, shutting off the lights, making sure the HVAC, if you have it, is in an off mode or in the right temperature setting, and just sort of reducing the way that we use energy and be more aware of how we close the doors and how we leave the rooms when we leave at the end of the day. And also to note, we're doing a lot of operational updates with our energy that will be shown in the dashboard. So we are doing our Prop 39 LED lighting installation. Hopefully next month it starts. We will be replacing the fixtures and most of the lights within the district to LED lights, and the approximate savings is about 30% as of right now. So that again, once we go through, it will go through in phases by site, by building, and we will be able to show you all the savings that we get through the dashboard. And we are also, on September 3rd, we received our RFP responses for our solar phase 1 project, which is installing new solar on Edison Language Academy, Samo High Innovation Building, and John Adams Middle School. So we are evaluating those in the upcoming weeks. And here's an example of what the dashboard looks like. So it compares from the last 4 years of the district energy use. And we just put this out, and so I'm hoping that we get a lot of comments back and feedback to make it more user-friendly. I've received a few comments so far that people want to see the student enrollment to see if that, makes a difference in the energy usage, so they can sort of get a clearer picture. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lori.
That was terrific. Thank you very much. I just have one question, which I had already, and then when you mentioned the student tree thing, which I unfortunately wasn't able to go to, I think that's fantastic, but it raises my question. Have you incorporated students into the process as you go along? Because I feel like I think you have, but it isn't mentioned on your...
For the tree nursery?
No, I mean for the
sustainability?
Yeah.
Yes. We have been incorporating students, and when we have the final first draft, we are definitely going to hold a student study session so they can really take a look of what we've put in so far. In our committee meetings, it has been sort of hard because a lot of people aren't able to see the picture that we're trying to grasp, because sustainability means so much and so many people want to save the world with this plan. We have to bring it down, something that's tangible for the district. And so we're hoping that with the first draft, then people can really see our process of thought, and that's when we'll have definitely more student involvement than we have so far. That's a very good question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Are there other questions?
Oh, and we also had students at the charrettes that we held, which are also workshops that we held in Malibu and Santa Monica.
Thank you. Oscar.
I know that the state of California has passed very aggressive policy around reducing our carbon footprint and also to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. And I was wondering if we can bring some of that information to our students and to our school district to integrate the state goals into our plan so that we're in alignment, with those plans.
Absolutely. That is definitely a goal.
Thank you, Oscar. Dr. Girardi, I have a question. Would it be possible for staff at your direction to alert the student clubs at our schools? I presume that this club's more middle and high throughout the district, pertaining to the implementation of the City of Santa Monica's mandates that you mentioned earlier, both in your report and that were also mentioned here as part of this report. But it'd be nice to know that the student groups are aware of the decision of the board. Probably students aren't watching. I know we can let them know, but
Absolutely, we will.
but I think it also could be that we're carrying that forward. Staff is, and making sure that all student groups that are have a touch to this Let's Save the World, which I'm with them. We're all with them, and making sure that they understand the scope that we are engaged in of the work here, what the plan is, the 20, the 25, and the 30. And that they know, because we're not doing much fanfare here in the sense that we've said we're going to adopt this, we're moving forward, particularly with the Santa Monica regulations for the 1st of January. I want to make sure that everybody's aware of that.
Absolutely.
Yes, Malibu also. So, great. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the presentation this evening. Friends, that now brings us to our last discussion item for the evening, which is item 8I, and that's an update on facilities work.
Hello, hi, Kerry Upton, Chief Operations Officer. While school was out, for the 10 weeks, we did a lot of work in facilities. So we just felt like it was important to give you an update on what we've been doing. So in some ways, so that you'll know what we did last summer. I have a number of my team members here to communicate and express what we've been doing. So I'm going to introduce them. They'll come up. If there are questions along the way, we invite you to ask those questions, and we'll jump right in. Ready? Okay, so starting off with Mr. Roosevelt Brown, who's our Director of Maintenance and Operations.
Good evening. I'm the Roosevelt Brown Director of Maintenance Operations, and basically I oversee 3 departments: the Operations Department, which is our custodial staff, the Maintenance Department, which is all of our tradesmen, and our Construction Department, which is made up of 3 people, which is Dennis, and we handle all of dollars that are not bond dollars. So we handle the GS dollars, and we work with operational dollars. So I'm going to talk about, everything that I'm talking about is things we were able to do over this current summer. So the Maintenance Department is made up of about 16 people, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, and I'm going to talk about what they did briefly over the summer. Out of the 16 people, though, 4 of them were out majority of the summer on some type of injury or family related. For the Maintenance Department, we did 1,108 work orders. 763 of those corrective, and 345 of those work orders were dealing with our safety, because we were tagged with a lot of safety issues. Some of them were as simple as strapping things down during the earthquake, sidewalk trip hazards, things of that sort. So we did 1,108 work orders this summer. We had about $2.8 million total. Here's a list of how we were able to get these projects done. It was a very, very busy summer for us, because this is the first time in years that we've had this amount of money to do projects. So I'm going to briefly go through some of the things that we did. A lot of these things are very, very necessary things. Some of these things were direct requests from you, the board, that we've taken care of, and I'll just go through them briefly. Bottle filling stations. We installed 20 bottle filling stations throughout the school district, and here's some of them, what they kind of look like. We did roofs. We did about $1.4 million worth of roofs. Here's a Cabrillo. Here's another one. Here's a Grant roof. Here's John Adams roof. We did the roof of the gymnasium. Here's another roof. Here's the much needed roof over at Muir Smash. We had to do 6 sections. I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but that building had lots of leaks, so it's like 3 or 4 part process to get make sure we get all the leaks. Here's another roof over Olympic. Here's another roof. We also did a major asphalt project at John Adams. It was just under 200,000. We did the crumbling parking lot, and we redid the playground area, which was a major piece because it was cited many times by our risk manager for trip hazards. Here's another picture of the asphalt. We did synthetic turf. Our playgrounds, when we had to measure for what's called a critical fall height, we were failing in a lot of places because we were out of compliance. So we went in and we did synthetic turf to make sure that we met the critical fall height. And these turfs had the rubberized section under it to make sure, again, we were in line with it. Here's another area that we did some turf that really helped beautify the campus over at John Adams. It really made that area pop, to use a terminology. Here's another area that we were able to do at, I think this is the Mirror Smash one, yes. That area that we did, it was just impossible to keep that grass growing. Lots of traffic, it gets constantly trampled down, it looked terrible. So we were able to go in and replace that turf. Some more pictures of some synthetic turf that we've done. One of the other requests directly from you guys, the board members, was to do bathrooms throughout the district. So here's a couple pictures of Santa Monica, Seminole High's bathrooms. We went in, did new stalls, just kind of really made the bathroom look better. Last year we were able to do sinks and mirrors. One of the things that before I got here, they were going away from mirrors because they were afraid that the kids were going to break and damage the mirrors. And I said, no, if we beautify the bathrooms, the kids won't have a problem with this. So we put mirrors in. We have no vandalism to the mirrors so far, so we're going to continue to replace those metal things that are not mirrors and put some mirrors in our bathrooms. Here's another more pictures of bathrooms. I don't have any slides, but the operations department, what we're able to do is to do a lot of additional cleaning this summer. Through our window pane and floor projects, we went in and we removed the wax tiles, the VCT, and we put in no wax tiles. So we had a lot of extra time to do additional things. So we went in, since we didn't have to strip the floors and those kind of things, we went in and we added windows. So we were able to clean a lot of windows, which we didn't have time in previous summers to get to. So again, I want to thank the board for its dedication to facilities and giving us this extra work. We accept it, and I'm going to now turn it over to Jerry.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Gibson. I'm your facility use manager. Over the summer, we've had an opportunity to upgrade our audio, video, and theatrical components in all 10 of our elementary schools. With the use of ES funds, these upgrades provide state-of-the-art, easy-to-use systems, which increases community engagement and student learning by creating an environment that is scalable, easy to troubleshoot, and most importantly, easy to use. I just very quickly want to share with you a few slides to show some examples of our upgrades. We have upgraded all schools with new permanently fire-proofed curtains, saving thousands of dollars a year in fire retardation. The colors were able to be chosen by the school's administrators, and everything is currently installed, so no more torn curtains. We have installed new larger screens and new projectors in each space. These are all the same projectors with the exception of a couple schools which needed larger projectors, so every school has the correct size and lumens. We have upgraded all the theatrical lighting, so we have all new LED lighting, wirelessly controlled. These are color changing lights, so this can be used in any combination and all controlled with the iPad and can be controlled remotely. We've upgraded all the sound with new powered speakers, new microphone systems. All schools have the same system. Again, easy to troubleshoot, a really smart system that will automatically adjust for feedback control. So regardless of who's using this system, it will sound and be exactly how it should. And this is the best part. So instead of having the massive racks that would used to be wheeled around, everything is now controlled via an iPad with a series of redundancies that works back to a wall plate. These can all be controlled remotely. These teachers can walk around the room with the additional iPad that's in the back racks. So they can walk around, control the lighting, the audio, and the projectors and the screens, all from the iPad. Even this morning, we had an issue at Roosevelt where something went wrong. One of our technicians was able to use the iPad to correct the issue from his living room. So we're no longer traveling to sites. It doesn't take us an hour to get to Cabrillo anymore. We can fix it right there on the spot. And that concludes. I'm gonna turn this over to Steve Massetti. Great, thank you.
Okay, so I have a very short part, but it's I think the most exciting part. We're obviously talking about our summer projects. We'll go through each of these. I'm going to talk about Samo High and a very, very brief part about Malibu, and then I'll turn it over to Kevin Klaus, who will take it from there. So the most exciting part is that at Samo High, we tore down the science and technology buildings. If you've driven by, you've undoubtedly noticed the difference. First thing we did over the summer is take down the corner of that wall at 6th and Olympic. Progress out there is going great. We're doing really well with grading. In fact, I think grading will be finished within the next 2 weeks. And by finished, I mean of this contract, it'll be finished. We'll still have another 30,000 yards to take out with the next contract. But the campus is coming along quite well. We've put up some wayfinding signage as well as some banners around the campus, which have made a great difference. The on-campus presence of those wayfinding signs it's pretty intense. If you walk around, you don't have to, especially, well, if, for instance, you had never been there, obviously this doesn't apply to you, but you can find your way around. There's no guessing, there's no, what is the science building? Anyway, it's all there. And then we're also doing the Olympic Spur project, which is that little area between the baseball field and Olympic, just before, I guess, just west of the entrance at 6th Street. That's under construction, and we intend to have that complete by the end of the year. That's the same contractor that's doing the demolition and grading work, and they're doing a great job. So now we're gonna roll on to Malibu High School. The only part I'm gonna talk about is, some of you are aware of this because of the facility subcommittee, but we did find some PCBs in the soil below the former library and admin building. They were below actionable levels, below DTSC and EPA levels. But we had tested for it. Also wasn't required to test for them, but we did test for them. We found them at these very low levels. We met with the superintendent, with the FDAC, and with our facility subcommittee. The recommendation of the FDAC to the superintendent was to go ahead and remove those soils and replace it with clean soil. The superintendent gave us that direction. We did that. Unfortunately, we found it about a week before school started, which isn't the best time to have to do that, but we were able to get the work done actually. I think it finished the Friday, or maybe it was a Saturday before school started. So it all worked out well. We missed Get Your Stuff Day. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, who's going to talk about the actual work there.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kevin. I'm a Deputy Program Manager, and I'm going to talk about some of the other projects. So at Malibu, one of the major things that we accomplished was we finished construction of the new MDF building, which allowed us to finally move the last data equipment out of the old admin building and continue with the demolition. So over the summer, the old admin building, also probably noticed, is gone, and we're starting grading for the new building, which Steve talked about some of the grading activities. We accomplished restoring HVAC to the classrooms in Building D, which is the Mako building that's in the picture there in the background of the grading for the new building. Also right there is the construction of the new stairway that goes from the future Growth Point building up to the track and field. It's a nice access route from the parking lot to the campus. Right now they're going a long way around. Which one do I push here? Okay, so here we have some shots of the construction of the Growth Point building, the new middle school building, or well, the Growth Point building. And what you see there on the left, on the top left, is the foundations. We've done all the underground infrastructure and some of the, we got the foundation in, and the actual Growth Point units are starting to be delivered to the site and assembled in place. And so We have some more coming out, I think, maybe either tomorrow or Monday. There's more units coming out, and you can see the first round is set in place. So I'm going to talk about a few window paint floor projects. The first one is we're looking at pictures of McKinley. This is a 2-year project, so we just completed the first improvements for the first summer. What you're looking at right there is a corridor on building B. This is a classroom building. We did a significant amount of work on the corridor of just outside the classrooms there to provide proper ADA access and really to meet fire life safety requirements. So that's like sort of in construction, and then some completion photos there and some classroom pictures at the bottom. And other work we have going on at McKinley includes HVAC work. So a lot of the units have been installed. Work is in progress. It's in progress with other things we're doing. The HVAC system will actually be operational at the end of next summer. Here we have pictures of Franklin. Again, it's a 2-year project, so we've completed kind of like phase 1 or year 1 of the 2-year project. Here's just some shots of some completed work there, some of the exterior trim that was painted on some portable buildings, and some of the interior classroom shots. This is building B, which is the admin and classroom building. We did a lot of work, flooring and paint work on the first floor this year, and we'll do some of the similar paint and flooring work on the second floor next year. Here we have some just sort of typical shots of some air conditioning units. The air conditioning is actually the first air-conditioned buildings will be activated between now and, say, the next couple of weeks. Probably in the first week in October, we should have air conditioning in some buildings at Franklin. So here we have, so Point Dume was another window paint floor project. Is a 1-year project, so we completed it this summer. These are some shots, some nice completed classrooms. And the HVAC units were also installed at Point Dume. Effectively, they're done. They're not operational because we're waiting for some associated electrical upgrades that are ongoing with Edison right now. So that'll be completed over the next several weeks. I think by the time we get the work done, the electrical upgrades done, we probably will be beyond the real warm season, so they won't really be useful until next year. Okay, this is work we did at Webster Elementary School. This was really a major site reconstruction project. We began work during the last week in June, and we accomplished a tremendous amount of construction work before school started. So some of the things that we accomplished there is we completed the reconstruction of the upper and the lower big asphalt playgrounds, complete asphalt reconstruction. We completely reconstructed the ramp in between. Big retaining walls. It actually was a really big effort in a small amount of time. In the lower campus, we constructed a paved parking lot to provide badly needed parking in this neighborhood. And we installed or constructed a newly designed bus drop-off area. And with this project, we now have a continuous ADA path all the way from the lower parking lot to the top of the 2 playground areas, which is actually it's a pretty good achievement at this campus just because it's on a slope. It's a challenging site. And right now we're currently working to complete a new parent drop-off area along Winter Canyon Road. We expect it to be done probably at the end of October. So at JAMS, there's 2 projects I'm going to talk. They're really 2 kind of distinct projects. The first was the sports field replacement, where we removed all of the old turf, and we took care of some associated kind of drainage improvements. We had some old drainage problems that you may be familiar with out there. And we installed a new turf surface with natural cork and crushed olive core infill, and, as opposed to the crushed rubber that was there before. And we also replaced the softball infield. The softball baseball infield is now an artificial turf. It's actually a unique infield. I think you guys might be interested to check that out. And then the last thing I want to talk about was actually there's one more. At JAMS, the other project was the replacement of the flooring in the gym, the wood floor. The old original wooden floor was completely removed, and this beautiful wood floor was installed from the ground up. And with this project, we did other associated ADA improvements in the gym area, in the locker room area. This is Olympic High School. Just to be brief, we completed the modernization, and we've recently awarded a contract for the window paint floor work that will happen there soon, and we'll be starting that work soon.
Any questions?
Thank you.
We ran through it quickly. It was a lot. The explanation was faster than the summer. So any comments, questions, directions?
Yes. John, and then Lori.
Hey, just a couple for you, Carrie, and this is great. Thank you guys for pushing through all this. I guess the first question is, when are you going to get us the request for the next batch of deferred maintenance that you need to do? So the sooner the better, so we can keep everybody busy and working.
Okay.
The second one is, I'm assuming that, and Roosevelt brought up the fact that we replaced a lot of the rubber matting on playgrounds. I've seen that throughout the district. I'm just curious, I'm assuming you guys tested Roosevelt, and that, not Roosevelt, the playground at Roosevelt, and that passed, because that's one of the few that are not grass yet.
Right.
So that still is okay, and it met the standards that we need, and we're good
It does.
with that?
It currently works. It hasn't fallen apart completely. It's, but it is on our list to replace. So with our next sort of planning with funding, it's, we did an assessment before we did any of them to figure out which were in the worst shape, and we're working our way through. So we're going to do that. We do have our next list coming. And just because I know you also are concerned about that, we have more water fountains on order and should be in the next month. So.
Thank you. Lori.
I just want to say, if this doesn't speak to the tremendous amount of work being done by the entire facilities department, I don't know what does, and I want to say thank you for doing that quickly, because there's a lot in there, and since it's your everyday work, you could give a lot more detail. But I also just want to comment that, since I've been on the board, just to have some perspective, I've never seen this much work being completed, and it's obviously a function of staff. It's also a function of money from the community. It's GSH money and it's ES money, and they're all contained in here. And so kudos to all of you and to our community for enabling us to do all this. So
Yeah, we really appreciate having the opportunity to make the facilities better for our students.
It's really great, though, to see it. It really is.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you to your entire team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Colleagues, that now brings us to major action items, which there are none. We have one informational item for us all to take a look there on supplemental textbooks, and brings us to general comments from the public. John? Right, so by our rules, the comments will be 2 minutes this evening.
Okay, so I'll read the overview for public comment, and then we'll give a little addendum to it. So public comments is the time when members of the audience may address the Board of Education on items not scheduled on tonight's agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, board members may not engage in discussion of issues raised during public comments, except to ask clarifying questions, make a brief announcement, make a brief report on his or her own activities, or to refer the matter to staff. So for the members of the audience tonight, most of the comments are about one topic. Because it's not agendized, we as a board cannot engage in discussion with you on it, but do not take that to mean we are not hearing your voices. The public comment section shall be limited to 30 minutes. And because we have more than 10 speakers, speakers will be limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Any speakers who come after this session has started will be given 1 minute to speak. Finally, speakers and members of the audience are asked to refrain from expressions of support or disagreement that would intimidate other speakers or disrupt the meeting. So to start our general public comment, I'll call 3 speakers out at a time. Our first is Jill Hawkins, then Kevin Mann, and then Ann Thanawala. And you'll each have 2 minutes, please.
Okay, I didn't know we only had 2 minutes. I'm here just to inform you guys, but also since children are being denied schools, Just to let you know, 2 local Malibu residents, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Del Bigtree, sued Health and Human Services last month and won because in 1986, vaccine companies got immunity from ever being able to be sued. And so they put Health and Human Services in charge of doing safety testing and to make them safer and to give biannual reports. So they've done 0 in 32 years. And so they won a lawsuit that Health and Human Services has done 0 safety testing in 32 years. Didn't realize I only had 3 minutes, so I'm gonna play a little bit of what Robert F. Kennedy says. I don't know if this is gonna work out.
Really want to thank you for joining us. What HHS has admitted here is that there is no scrutiny. There is no vigilance. Most Americans don't understand this, that prior to being licensed, every other pharmaceutical drug and pharmaceutical product has to go through rigorous, randomized, double-blind placebo testing. Vaccines alone are immune from that. So instead of 5-year tests with true placebos, vaccines sometimes get only a few hours of safety testing or a few days. And of course, that's not long enough to spot injuries with long incubation periods like autism, like ADD, like food allergies, like autoimmune diseases. And really, Del, what it shows is the lackadaisical, the cavalier, the casual attitude HHA has towards vaccine safety.
This is the first time I'm getting to even have the opportunity to congratulate you on what we've just achieved in this order.
This is the first of a barrage of legal approaches that we've devised, a legal strategy that we believe will ultimately protect these children finally and bring justice to the families who've been injured. We expect to make it.
So kids are being denied school, and I know you guys have contact with Ben Allen, our senator, so I just hope we can all come to figure out how we can get the children back in school because on faulty science. Thanks.
Thank you, Jill. Our next speaker is, and thank you, Robert Kennedy Jr. Our next speaker is Kevin Mann.
Okay, I am a Roosevelt parent and a Roosevelt alumni myself. I believe that having parents involved within the school before and after school is a great benefit to my children. There should have been more debate, open debate, about this change in implementation. The debate could have very well have determined that there are alternatives to locking the parents out, such as using ID cards or whatever. This is a major philosophy change, a major change. The change that parents' involvement in the school translates to involvement at home. I think I already read that. I believe that the young kids benefit during the drop-off, where some of us parents play with the kids, get them to run around so that their bodies are moving before they sit down in a classroom all day. This is just one of the many benefits of parents being on campus, and their involvement is beneficial for the young children. We also help set up book fairs, set up the carnival, which I've been doing for many years. It also allows us to have greater teacher access, which helps the students' performance. The class access helps the parents better understand where their child is at and how they are performing. And feedback I've gotten from the teachers is they want the open school. Some people have said otherwise, but I have yet to find a majority of teachers that are for that policy. I just wish that there would have been more debate and more openness so that it could have been maybe compromised, or if the majority of people did want a closed campus, well, I'm for majority rule, I would have been better okay with it. However, seems to me that a majority of parents and a majority of teachers would rather have an open campus as it's a benefit for the children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Our next speaker is Ann Thanawala.
Hello again. I'm also here to speak on the issue of closed campuses versus open campuses. And included in the conversation should have been a process that there was engagement. I mean, we just heard a wonderful presentation about sustainability, and we're hearing that there are going to be town halls for discussion. This is all of our elementary school community that's being told that this is the way it's going to go without any real public engagement. And this is a defining moment when we're talking about everything from the federal level on down, that community engagement matters. And we are the primary stakeholders of young children. And all of those things that we talk about with lab schools and how you document how children are learning, we are the first providers. And for us to be able to see how that engagement is working with our kids and other children, with our kids and the instructors, with our kids and the other faculty on staff, that is something that they're learning through our process. Other issues that came up in the meeting, we were told by the district that fire was never engaged in this conversation. We understand that it's necessary for the fire department to be engaged and have a look at this. Another question I think that unfortunately Sarah's no longer here for is the issue of what this means for the teachers, in the respect that teachers are now expected to receive emails from parents. There might be something that I don't want to say. There might be something that I don't want to say about to a teacher through that channel, and how that might affect whether a teacher is being evaluated in that format concerns us.
Great.
So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ann. Our next three speakers are Sean Milliken, Tracy Cohen, and Jennifer Freeman.
Hello there. Good evening. I've sent all of you a letter, and I'm basically going to read the letter that I sent you. If I don't get through it, I please implore that you read it thoroughly and respond to the queries that I have in it. But I'm just going to go ahead and start reading it. In light of a sudden move to restrict parents' access to the Roosevelt campus, I had some immediate reactions. Wow, they're criminalizing me as a parent. They're excluding me from accessing my child's place of learning. This is creating an environment ripe for abuse. Why are they doing this? I was told two things. We want to prevent shooter situations and eliminate the likelihood of child abduction. As a parent, these words raise the feelings of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But are these feelings warranted, or are they just driven by sensationalism? This leaves me with a dilemma as a parent. Anecdotally, it seems that all shooter situations I have heard of are perpetrated by students, staff members, or strangers. Is there actually data that shows otherwise? Shows that it's parents? If you can find reference to it, please let me know. I haven't seen it. In fact, I found in 2017 there were only 2 incidents in over 90,000 elementary schools across the U.S. Both were on closed campuses, ironically. In one case, the perpetrator gained access legitimately as a spouse was a staff member. In the other one, a truck was rammed through the gate. Neither were parents, but I digress. If we do the math, we get 0.0022% of elementary schools are at risk annually. This is a very small number, arguably insignificant, yet still not preventable by the measures suggested. I do not see how this could possibly be. Let me at least just finish a sentence, paragraph. Thank you. I do not see how this could possibly lower the risk of child abduction. Sure, it puts the scenario just off campus, possibly reducing the school's direct liability. But honestly, it seems to me that this will increase the overall risk of student abduction by amassing hundreds of students at each of 2 gates, supervised by only a small handful of staff. We're creating a situation ripe for misconduct.
Sean, and we did get your email that you sent on Tuesday. I think all of us as a board did receive that, and we've read that. So
Okay.
thank you for your comment. We appreciate
I
that.
appreciate it, and I really did want to get into some of the reasons that I have enumerated reasons that I think we are actually losing a very significant and very important piece of our a very important piece of our community, and I really implore you to read it and,
I appreciate
and pay
that.
close attention.
And I know that we'll make this announcement at the end of public comment, but we reiterate, a lot of parents weren't here earlier when Dr. Drotti spoke to this during the superintendent's report, and there will be a town hall meeting at Roosevelt on Wednesday at 6:30 p.m.
Yep.
We'll have a lot more time to voice concerns, but thank you for coming here tonight to reinforce your email.
Okay.
Our
appreciate
next
that.
speaker is Tracy Cohen.
Thank you. Good evening. According to Education Code 32288B1, the school site council or school safety planning committee shall hold a public meeting at the school site in order to allow members of the public the opportunity to express an opinion about the school safety plan. In addition, Dr. Dratti's comments at the last board meeting set an expectation that each school's administration would work with the parents to figure out the school safety plan. In specifically the secure campus policy. However, we at McKinley were not given an opportunity to offer input on the secure campus policy before it was sent out to our community. Also, the time of the upcoming PTA meeting at our school will not allow working parents to attend, nor give the administration enough time to revise the plan based on the community's input. It seems that Franklin's PTA was able to have a long discussion prior to their plan being enacted. I would like to have the same courtesy extended to us and all schools, as we are not the same community and have other concerns. And I'd like the opportunity to hear our administration's needs rather than having to guess at the reasons for the strict policy. Of course, the policy is in place for the safety of the students. We are doing what's right for the students by protecting their physical safety, but let's not forget that we should also protect our kids' emotional safety. Banning parents from being on campus at drop-off and pickup is not promoting a positive environment, especially for the younger ones who need the extra support. In the rush to implement this policy, we're forgetting that some of these children are 4 years old and need to feel emotionally safe to be successful at school. This new policy, where parents aren't allowed to enter the school gates at drop-off, forces the kids to put their trust in gate monitors and yard aides before they reach the classroom and a teacher they're just getting to know. I implore the board to seriously consider the family's input and work collaboratively with the community rather than implement a top-down policy. There must be a way to support the children who need extra help at drop-off while keeping the campus safe for everyone.
Thank you, Tracy. Our next speaker is Jennifer Freeman.
Good evening. I'm the proud parent of 2 daughters who attend Roosevelt in 2nd and 5th grade. I'm here today to ask the board to pause the proposed October 1st implementation of a closed campus policy at Roosevelt. My husband and I have rotated dropping off our girls in the morning at Roosevelt for the past 6 years. As I walk onto campus each morning, I see joy and connectivity from both students and parents. I see parents playing kickball with their children. I see younger children holding their parent's hand while their parent makes a connection with another parent to discuss volunteer opportunities or to discuss upcoming play dates. I see the ease in parents' eyes as they watch their child leave their presence and directly enter the presence of an adult who knows their name. When my daughter was in 1st grade, she experienced a bout of anxiety, and I was able to walk her to her classroom door and help her feel calm before securely transferring her to her caring teacher. These are all the little and big things that you don't read in a data analysis report when you don't take parent voice into consideration. Having experienced this for the past 6 years, I've never once worried that my children were in danger due to the parents on the campus. I know that my children were actually more safe because there were other adults that knew their name and were out watching out for them. But I do worry about the safety of my children. At Roosevelt, there are 5 to 6 open gates each morning, which are unattended. There are not cameras to capture potential dangerous situations. I worry there's not a security guard on campus, but I don't feel that this closed campus is actually the answer. I think the solution is quite clear. I think we can increase security so strangers don't come on campus, but I don't think we should ban our parents. I'm extremely frustrated for the first time as a Roosevelt parent because my voice and all of our voices were not taken into consideration with this drastic and sudden change. And I think it's really interesting. I want the district to consider, why is there such pushback? We are not open to change, but we really think our voices should be heard in this. I appreciate Dr. Dradi holding a meeting on Wednesday, but I really hope that that meeting is to take parents' voice into consideration about whether or not we should implement this policy. So I'm asking for the board to please pause this 10-1 start date so we can really take all voices into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next three speakers are, is it Tybe Franklin? Tybee Franklin, Moritz Turven, and Frank Sackett.
Hi. My name is Tybee Franklin. I'm a parent at Roosevelt. Drop-off is a bustling time, but it always goes very smoothly because the school parents have formed a community of genuine caring. We recognize the familiar faces and share an understanding that we're responsible for the remarkable and precious Roosevelt school community. I'm concerned the upcoming closed campus plan is undermining the community we've cultivated. By not involving parents in the process before instituting this radical change, the community of trust we have built has been shaken. Still 10 days out, we have not been informed about how this process will work. Our kids are anxious about it. It is a drastic change in their daily routine, and it is not clear that their needs have been accounted for. We have a lot of ideas about what can help enhance security at the school. Security guards, I think, is an important first step. We do want to keep out those who do not belong, but we want to allow parents. When I was parking the car this evening, there was a mom dropping her middle school age son off for baseball practice at the park, and she said to him, she's like, I'm just making sure you are where you want to be, or where you're supposed to be. And I was like, that's exactly it. That's what I'm going to try and tell the board. I want to make sure my daughter is where she's supposed to be, which means with her teacher. I asked the board members to join us in the meeting with the superintendent next Wednesday at Roosevelt, and I ask that we pause implementation of the closed campus policy until we have discussions about how we can maintain the integrity of the Roosevelt community while improving the security of our children. Thanks.
Thank you, Tybee. Our next speaker is Moritz.
He went home.
So our next speaker is now Frank.
Which I know him.
Thanks for stepping up.
Yes. I'm a Roosevelt parent too. Many of other people that I've met through morning drop-offs, and I'm not really sure why this implementation has happened. Again, I don't think we were involved with it at all. I don't see how it's going to be safer. I mean, I was, on the promenade when that gentleman ran through it a number of years ago, and I don't see how putting our kids out in front of the school is going to help us. I mean, not even I'm talking about a malicious something, but if there was some car that came through, we have 400 kids on the curb now instead of inside the gate, which now currently on the promenade we have a gate to stop it. It's a special time in the morning that I can't get back with my kids, and I've got to know the teachers. I've volunteered, and again, we're all these people I see every morning, and it's just going to be disheartening that we're going to be kind of shut at the gate and say, hey, bye. And where did the problem come from? I mean, I know there's been some security issues. There was an issue a couple years ago where there was a performance going on, and there was a homeless man that came into the auditorium. The police were there, and who else was there? The parents that stopped him. So, I mean, we can't protect our kids from everything, but we need to be involved, and I think we can do a lot more to do it than shutting it off and just depending on our teachers. As we have in the school, we've backed our teachers up and support them all the time. So again, I think this has been rushed into, should be, not been implemented on the 1st, and unfortunately I can't come on Wednesday to that because of a prior engagement, but I came, and I hope you guys are listening. So again, thank you.
Thanks very much, Frank. Our last two speakers on the top for public comment are Amy Mierich and Mark Feinberg.
Good evening. I am a parent of 2 students at Roosevelt with another child who will begin kindergarten in a few years. As a working parent of the later shift in the hospital, I often don't see my children before they go to bed in the evening. So for me, after the busyness of the getting ready household in the morning, walking them into school calmly in the morning, and dropping them there is the best moment I have with them each day. I get to see them enjoy their community of friends. I get to meet the parents of the other children and build that community so that I can feel more safe about them spending time with friends and their families outside of school. I get to hug them goodbye inside the secure gates of the school and remind them again how much I love them. And I get to see them in a line with their classmates safely handed off to the care of their teachers. What is different about us as a district than schools in districts where parents aren't as involved is just that, involvement. I believe that closing campus will take away much of this important involvement. We've been at the school for 6 years and nothing has been wrong with our regular process up to now. I understand the points made about safety, but it has never felt as though our safety has been compromised as it is. We stand together as a community of people who foster the love and security that is brought to our children by hugging them goodbye as the bell rings. We request your support and backing to keep our amazing school as it has been all this time. We ask that we delay this abrupt change and first consider the options more closely. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And lastly, we have Mark.
Mark Feenberg. I'm a Roosevelt parent for 9 years now. I have 2 of my 4 children are still at Roosevelt. I'm actually a huge fan of a closed campus, but closed to strangers, not closed to parents. Currently, anybody is free to walk on the campus during drop-off and pick-up times, whether they have a child at Roosevelt or not, and that's a security issue that should be addressed. But to solve the problem of strangers walking on campus by concluding that we should let nobody on campus, including parents, seems to be not a great solution. Not only will it make our children less safe by moving the pairing of the students onto the sidewalk where any stranger is legally allowed to stand, but there's a very simple, easier solution that would still allow parents to come to campus, the same type of solution that office buildings all over the nation have. And I don't think it seems like a hard or expensive solution to enact. Every parent I talk to is in favor of creating a more secure campus, but most of us believe that we should do so in a way that makes sense, that solves the problem to be solved, and that doesn't create a worse security issue outside of our grounds. The proposed solution seems to me to be heavy-handed and overly simplistic solution that might do a great job in creating the appearance of a safer campus, but will create a less safe campus. I'd much rather have hundreds of vetted parents on the campus at drop-off and pick-up, helping to watch over my kids and looking out for any strangers that may have somehow slipped through the secure gates, then release hundreds of kids onto the sidewalk where anybody could be standing. To me, the solution is clear: increase the security, lock down the campus to strangers, but let the parents onto the campus. And that's what I would hope that all of you propose and enact rather than what's been proposed. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And that concludes our public comment section.
Great, thank you, John, and thank you to everybody who came out tonight. We just want to reiterate again, it's Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. I think board members who are available to be at that town hall at Roosevelt will be there. And there are 2 Roosevelt alum here. John Keene, who's a president of the PTA there, and I was president of the Booster Club, 11 years at Roosevelt. It's a great, great school, as are all our schools. That brings us to the conclusion of our agenda this evening. Are there board member comments before we move to adjourn? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Maria, seconded by John Keene. All in favor say aye. That's great. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.